And I will call to order the Tuesday, July 28th Town Council Committee of the Whole meeting. All councilors are present with the exception of Councilor Perry. Mr. Hanover, since Councilor Perry is not here at this time, we will postpone items 5B, 5C, because those are his referrals. And as we have done in the past for other councilors, when they are not able to be present for the schedule, we simply defer till another meeting. So thank you, Mr. Hanover, for coming out this evening. Calendar and communications. We have with us tonight the Registrar of Voters to give us some brief communications. Councilors, if we go through this very briefly with our own communications, then Mrs. Vendetti would like to speak to us at that point and give us an update on things. So I would ask that we do on a quick communications from council, and then we'll get right to the registrar. Councilor Baumgartner.
Nothing to report, but if there's something, I will be sure to say before we're done with this agenda item.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said, Councilor Baumgartner.
That I don't believe there's anything to report, but if I miss something, I'll be sure to say before the end of this agenda.
All right, very good. Councilor Parker.
I toured the News Middle School, and thank you to those who set it up. It was very informative. They're going to enjoy the new school. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Franco.
I received many emails and had many discussions with residents regarding the Knowing School property. And I think that's about it for this week. Thanks.
Councilor Heed.
Yeah, I have a couple of things, but I'll try to keep it brief. Councilor Bordelon and I both attended a rally in Stonington to support our fellow Groton Town resident, Crystal Caldwell. It was very well attended. I also attended a CCM municipal training for police accountability this afternoon. I got a portion of it. There's some add-on information that I haven't finished reading. I haven't started reading yet. They sent it after the call, so I'll share that with everyone. And then let's see. Other than that, it was just a number of letters on the Knowing School property. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Aubry.
Kind of quiet, busy at work. I did receive calls, letters, and emails in reference to Knowing. So I'll share those later, probably.
Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. As Councilor had stated, I attended a rally in Stonington in support of a resident in Groton, Crystal Caldwell. It was heavily attended by lots of different folks in the community, as well as other elected officials. I also attended a Board of Ed meeting yesterday. A lot of talk about redistricting, and a presentation about what I saw was about 4 different plans, as well as the reopening and what school will look like as far as where they're at with that. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Councilor Mendez.
Nothing to report.
Okay, I attended an event at Pfizer where they announced their progress on a vaccine for COVID-19, and it is very encouraging. They are taking an approach that allows them to ramp up production very quickly, and therefore, if it works, they're going to be running some trials. They'll be able to kick it in right away, and they don't have to have the delays that you normally have when you're doing a vaccine. So it was very encouraging to hear that from someone right in our town that's doing this work that has a potential to really change people's lives. The other thing I attended was a meeting with the governor where he discussed with superintendents various plans and concerns that superintendents were having for the school reopening. The Groton Diversity Council had a forum. The young ladies and gentlemen who organized the Peaceful Protest March from the Chronic Plains to the city building and back held this forum on Saturday, and it was a 2-hour listening session where Chief Pizarro, the manager, and 3 officers, myself, Representative Conley, and RTM member Rust, in the capacity as city staff and RTM member, and Senator Summers as well attended. And it was kind of a listening session, and they asked various questions, and we had the opportunity to respond and have a nice dialogue. And we're looking forward to continuing that conversation with those young people. So thank you very much for inviting us to attend that forum. All right, Registrar Venditti, you have the floor to talk to us about what's going on with the elections.
Okay, so I assume you want to know what we have been doing to get ready for the change from West Side 2 to Zabierski House. I've done everything that I can think of. So if when I mentioned this list, if there's anything that you can think of that I didn't cover, let me know because I'd be happy to do it. So the first thing is on Groton's TV station, we put a slide up. I worked with Sean and we got that up. The newspaper will have a note in the next couple of days with like an announcement that says that the voting has changed. We sent a card to all registered Republicans and Democrats to let them know of the change. There will be a sign, it's a sandwich board sign, 18 by 24, that will be posted somewhere outside of West Side. I'm still looking into where I can put it because the fence is so close to the sidewalk. So, but we will get it up there somehow, some way that will direct them with all the instructions on where to go to vote. The day of the election, we have like the political signs with the metal stakes that say, you know, vote at Zabierski House, and it says if you're a Republican and a Democrat, so it won't hopefully confuse too many people, with arrows that we're going to put on depending on where we put those out. So it'll point people and we'll get them. I've got 10 of those, so we'll get those to go all the way down towards the beach, and the last one will be right on Beach Pond Road going down. Somebody want to say something?
Go right ahead, please.
Okay. We also put it on the Registrar's town website, and the town clerk was going to put it on her website. As far as the fact that the beach is going to be open, I've already worked it out with the Parks and Rec director for the city, and they're going to have the gate open that day, and they're only going to be counting the people that are actually going on to the beach as their count for how many they are allowed to have. So what I did was I purchased some sign stands that we're going to put in the parking lot. There's going to be 6 spaces. I know it's not a lot, but at least it's some that will be marked for voter only. And we will have people monitoring that to make sure the cars don't stay there for too long. Like as the line goes through, the cars should change. So hopefully that will do that. We're also going to put some signs like that up at Fitch because we've had difficulty with that in the past, but I'm not sure that we'll actually need them in this one because there's no school activities going on, but we're going to do it just in case anyway. I don't know if you want to know what we're doing for safety. I can give you an overview of what we're doing for that. Just let me know.
Yes, you're talking health safety?
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
You're talking about health safety as far as preventing the spread of disease?
Yes, preventing the spread. We had to do a safety plan with the Secretary of the State. So we set up how we were going to be setting up each polling place with the 6-foot and markers and where they're going to be standing and how we're going to do it. So basically, they're going to come in, there's going to be tape on the floor or rug or whatever, but it's painter's tape, so it won't damage any property. And then people will have to just stay the 6 feet apart in line. Then when they get into the polling place, the tables will be set up 6 feet apart. They're 6-foot long tables. So we'll have like the voter will stand at one end and the checker will sit at the other end to check them in. We have a ton of pens that we purchased, and we're going to be washing those, sanitizing those in between use. So we have probably about 12 workers in each polling place to deal with all the excess that needs to be done. We have masks, or people can wear their own for the workers. We will have some masks if somebody comes in from outside and doesn't have one on, but wants one, we'll give them one, disposable ones. We also have shields that the workers can wear if they would like to. The checker was what the Secretary of State had first thought needed to wear one because they're going to be the closest to the voter. And then we also have sanitizing cleaner. We have automatic hand sanitizer, little machines and refill sanitizer to put in throughout the day. We'll have 2 stations, one as they enter and one as they exit. I think that covers it. I mean, we're going to set the booths where they go in, the privacy booths where they actually register their vote on the ballot, are going to be set obviously 6 feet apart from each other.
This is John. Can I add something on that I don't think Kristen's aware of?
You're going to talk
Sure.
We're arranging for a bus, Kristen, to take people from St. John's Church, St. John's Christian Church over to back and forth to the polling place. Since a lot of people could normally walk to vote there. It'll start up about 6:30 in the morning. We're using the same bus system that does the school busing. And Keith Hedrick is aware of it, but I'll get with you. We'll get the word out about the availability of that bus there. And then if I send you the information, it'd be great if you could, put it with your information too.
Absolutely. Yep. That'd be great.
I'm also reserving it for the November election.
That would be great too. Yes.
And for safety wise, by the way, they're going to wipe down between each run, just so everyone knows. So it'll take a couple extra minutes each run, but there will be distancing required. And they're also going to get people's names and contact in case anybody shows up with COVID later, that they can quickly do contact tracing. That's part of their requirements.
All right, so we can take a couple questions from the council. I see Councilor Bordelon has her hand.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. I remember sending the message to John and asking. I thought it would be great to have, with all the changes going on, have some conversation about this as we get close. I have a couple questions. So this will be the first dual language ballot for the primaries at this upcoming election?
Yes, it will be the first dual language for Groton.
Okay. And is there any information going out about that, letting people know?
I definitely can put information out, but no, I hadn't actually thought of doing that. I apologize.
No, it's all right. I think it'd be helpful to put forward that. I mean, the effort was made to do such, and I think we need to advertise it to its potential and make sure that people are aware that that is happening, and Groton will have that available. The other thing that I was thinking, is there going to be any temperature taking at the polls?
The state has not allowed us to do that. So no, there will be no temperature taking at the polls.
Okay. The other question I had is, are we set to have the voting station at the November election to be at the same site? I just think it's very important to have continuity when we change the site. Obviously, it's none of our faults for the site to be changed, but it's just important that wherever we pick to use, that we can use it in consecutive, especially in a dual year like this, that we make that change kind of a lasting change so that it's familiar to folks.
Yes, we have it all set up to use it in November, and until the whatever school is going to be at Westside is available to us again, we'll move back to that school. But for now, we are able to be at Zabierski until the school is finished.
Mm-hmm. And then my other few questions are, I don't know if 6 spots is enough. What was the direction on that? Is there a possibility I need to have more? Are we only limited to 6? I'm concerned if it's a warm day and beach traffic is plentiful, that people are going to be waiting to get in, and it's not really giving them the full access that they deserve or need to get to the polls.
Well, what we're really doing is just putting the 6 closest non-handicap parking spaces so that the voters don't have to walk as far. The rest, if we do have a problem, if you think it's going to be a problem, I can probably get more signs to put up and some more posts. It'll just cost more money, of course.
Mm-hmm. And then also some questions that have come to me is if people want to stand out front with their signs, for a certain party or whatever, making sure that the markers are very clear and understood at this new polling station, since people are not used to that. And is that going to be allowed at the beach?
Yes, it is allowed. Everything that we have to do for the laws for the Secretary of State for the election will be allowed to be conducted at the beach. We will have the same, 75-foot polling signs that we have at every polling location. But like I said, on another matter, we are going to have somebody monitoring the outside. So if it becomes an issue, we'll always inform the people that are there with their own signs where that is, if they're not complying or they don't understand.
Okay. And then my last thing is maybe also getting it into the Groton Times. Some people that may not be able to afford the newspaper or do not have internet access might not see articles, and the Groton Times is a free paper that's delivered right to the home. So it would be another possible resource to use. And thank you for all your efforts.
Absolutely. I will look into the Groton Times and get everything in there. And I can also put a notice in the regular newspaper as well about the dual language ballots. Yeah. I can talk with Sean again and we can get another slide on Groton TV. And I can also get it on our website and the town clerk's website as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you so much. I hope the election goes smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask that councilors mute while we are in the meeting, because we're picking up a lot of noise in the background, dishes and doors and such. Councilor Baumgartner and then Heed, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just like to thank Kristen for her leadership on this. Appreciate the correspondence as well. I know I also had some concerns that I shared with Kristen, and she was very, very quick to respond with a plethora of information. So I'm appreciative of that and appreciative of you, Ms. Venditti. Now, in terms of, the future, I know, as you mentioned, that the the future West Side Elementary School will be reutilized as a polling location for the second district. My question is, has the office began looking at when other schools start coming offline? In the case of, Mary Morrison, which is a polling location now for the 40th district, as well as the sub-base community, as well as potentially SB Butler comes online as offline as a school. Are there any plans in place to identify future polling locations and vet those locations maybe a little earlier and by the public? That way, the public can provide some input on replacement locations once those schools are no longer utilized by the public.
We have been looking into them. I was looking just as quickly as I did for the Zabierski house until the school told me that I have another couple of years. So I was going to wait to officially start looking until after the presidential election. But we did look a little bit. We were looking at the firehouse across from Ocean View Avenue in Mystic for the SB Butler location because they have a parking lot in the back. And they have a large enough room to fit a polling place. We're just concerned about the number of parking spaces. But if anybody has any ideas, we're running a little short on Mary Morrison. We were looking into potentially the Dolphin Community Center because that's close by and accessible and has parking and everything. But if anybody has any other ideas, we looked into also the Paquonic Bridge Firehouse up on Long Hill Road, and that is not going to have enough room for us to have a polling place at. So if there's other ideas, I would be happy to hear anything, any suggestions as to where we might be able to move those other two locations.
You're muted, Andre.
Thank you, Councilor Heed. And lastly, I know the state Senate today just passed the absentee ballot legislation. To make it easier for folks to vote this upcoming election. What is sort of akin to what Councilor Bordelon discussed with the dual language ballots? What does your office plan to do to educate the public about enhanced voter rights this year?
Well, I hadn't thought, obviously, like I said, about putting things out beforehand, so I will get right on that. But as far as signs at the polling place, every sign that we've made, you know, like sanitizing station will have the English and the Spanish version on it. The parking signs will have the English and Spanish. We're doing everything that we can to make sure that we have both English and Spanish on everything that is in the polling place so that everybody feels welcome. I don't know if you have something specific in mind, because I'd be happy to do anything.
I don't know that, but I do know that I know you'd be willing to do anything. So I appreciate again your hard work, and you know, obviously this election is so important. But you know, happy to know that our town's in good hands. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Kristen. You may have said it, and I may have missed it, so I apologize. I heard about the parking spots, but I wanted to know, will we have the same number of polling places or polling stations at the Zabierski House as you would if it was at Westside?
Yes, actually, the state mandates what we can have for polling location. I mean, ballot booth. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. But we will have 500, for every 500 voters in the polling location, there needs to be one voting booth. In a normal election, it's 200, so there's actually going to be more. And I did do a walkthrough through Zabierski, and there's plenty of room to spread that out. I mean, I always thought it was too small, but when I went in there, it's surprisingly wide in there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I just had one question. How are we doing with the absentee ballots? I know I applied for an absentee ballot, and I know several other people have, and we have not received them yet. And I was just wondering if you had an update on that for us, please.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly because that's actually the town clerk's office that issues the ballots. And I know that the state was talking on some of our conference calls that we've had that they are going to be sending out the absentee ballots to the people. So I'm not exactly sure when they're going to, if they've updated the town clerks. However, I can tell you that as of Sunday, we had 2,500 Democratic absentee ballot requests and about 560 Republican absentee ballot requests.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other hands. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Mrs. Venditti?
Not that I can think of at this time.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate all your efforts, and please continue to do good work and be safe.
Thanks, you too. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we are on to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Burt. We skipped you. Do you have communications, Mr. Burt?
I was also at the two governor meetings with you last week, which were good. Did you want me to give a quick COVID update just on numbers?
Yes, please.
At this point? And then Paige Bronk's also available if you would like a brief update on economic development.
Yes.
In terms of COVID numbers, town of Groton, 146 confirmed or probable cases to date. Total deaths 25, which has stayed the same for several weeks. That's as of yesterday. The state number of cases, 49,077, which is up 94 since yesterday. Deaths, 4,423, which is up 5 since yesterday. Currently hospitalized in the state, 54, which is down by 5. And just for your information, in New London County, it's not available by town, but 0 hospitalized in New London County right now, which is a good thing. And then Paige is available now. Paige, are you on there?
I am. Paige Bronk, Economic and Community Development Manager. I have some information regarding economic development, more from a COVID standpoint, what we've been working on over the past few months. Some of this is redundant, but I'm going to try to move through a number of things fairly quickly in about 5 minutes or so. And if there are any questions, we can circle back around. So we focused over the past few months in putting a lot of resources on our Explore More Groton website, particularly the doing business and disaster assistance. Much of that was focused on the May 20th and June 17th reopening dates. We also used social media, Facebook pretty heavily. We promoted the listing of businesses that were open, their status, hour of operations, their websites, their Facebook menus, etc. We really focused on primary source data and hyperlinks because this information was changing fairly quickly at state, federal, and business level. So using the hyperlinks allowed people to know where to find the information as it was changing daily. We also provide a lot of business sector guidance from both government and industry sources. We did find out that there were over 50 Groton businesses that received federal assistance. That would have been through the CARES Act, SBA funding, a variety of sources. We also focused on, in particular, the governor's order that enabled restaurants and retail to use outdoor spaces for dining and sales. And the governor's executive order deferred to municipalities to try to implement that. The OPDS staff was quick to develop an application. We had over 12 businesses that were approved. None were denied. There was roughly a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. There were a couple businesses that wanted some off-site use that didn't quite work out, but that was really more of a property matter, not necessarily a regulatory issue for us. We did offer we sponsored a buy local, shop local contest. That was to try to get consumers to buy from our local businesses as we knew there was a downturn. We had over 50 entries and receipts submitting that totaled about $3,800. There were 10 winners who submitted the receipts. We had a drawing and gave out $25 gift cards to Groton restaurants. In addition, we had some reopening Zoom meetings with OPDS staff, Groton mayors, town manager, police chief, Ledge Light, and others. The first one was held on May 12th, just prior to the phase 1 reopening on May 20th. And the purpose of that was to try to inform businesses and the public as to what we knew, where we were at, what was to be expected moving forward as reopening phases occurred. The second Zoom meeting was held on June 8th, which was just prior to the June 17th reopening. There were questions and answers that occurred, and we did get some positive feedback. People thought that was fairly helpful. Another event we did on June 15th was with Miranda Creative. It was a business marketing webinar. We realized small businesses right now have very little time, very little resources to actually do any real marketing. They're just trying to survive. It was an excellent webinar, and it is on the Explore More Groton site. It covered kind of the sociology of the COVID response, almost the stages of grief perspective, and how businesses with their limited time can actually pivot and transition from issues to opportunities. And it was really helpful for small businesses that are struggling to adapt. In terms of getting a better understanding of where Groton businesses are, we've used surveys to do that. And really there are two parts. The first survey we did was exclusively within the economic development staff's realm. The second one is in working with a professional team named Nava Retail, which I'll cover in a second. But the first survey was quickly done April 9th to 21st. We needed to quickly gauge how bad the situation was. 83% of the respondents had fewer than 10 employees, so clearly it was targeted towards small businesses. We had about 80 businesses respond. About half were closed, 41% were partially open, 92% experienced loss of sales, 39% loss of future orders, 35% supply chain disruptions. They talked about PPE cost issues and supply as well. And that 50% planned on taking federal business assistance. The last question we asked was pretty significant. We asked, how long can you remain at current business status before closing permanently. And 84% said through May, 61% said through June, 41% said through July, and only 28% said through August. So basically that pointed to the fact that they probably won't be around if there was no reopening. Thankfully, there was a reopening, but that was our quick gauge. Regarding NAVA Retail, we're partnering with them to do additional surveys on behalf of Groton. They're a retail analytical firm. We've actually been speaking with them for a couple of years, but they actually came in handy in this given situation with COVID. They are conducting 4 surveys on our behalf. They've already done one early summer. We're going to do another one late summer. That'll actually be August 10th, right around the corner. There'll be one in the fall, and also the last one will be done post-holiday. The goal is to track retail impact trends from COVID and to compare with pre-COVID baseline consumer information. So we really want to gauge the impact. The first survey was June 1st through the 12th. These are direct phone surveys. They're not questionnaires. They're not emails. They are direct phone surveys. And there were 373 businesses that answered that phone in Groton. 42 declined to answer, 28 referred to corporate. Businesses that were impacted the most through the survey process indicated fitness centers, salons, lodging, sole proprietors, apparel stores. Nearly half of the immediate store closures were small businesses with annual revenues below $500,000. The peak of the business closures was around March 15th. That correlates with the government orders and impacts to businesses statewide. Retail revenues dropped about 29% from March through April, or to April, I should say. 28% of the businesses that were contacted who applied for federal funds were rejected for such funding. 14% of the businesses expressed a concern regarding the PPE. That was both in finding adequate supply and with the excessive cost. The recommendations from NAVA Retail as a result of this first survey was that online presence is critical for small businesses. Cross-promotional business campaigns will help geography, whether it's Mystic or Groton as a whole. Consistent safety instructions and signage with branding are important. Again, the consistency of the safety instructions, not left up to each individual business. That a business directory online is important, basically to let people know who's open and what their special hours are and special menus, etc. And that providing business PPE is really important. As I said, the second phase of the survey, the reopening survey, will begin the week of August 10th. So we're really encouraging businesses to be receptive. We are a partner with NAVA Retail. They're helping us greatly, and they're going to help us really allocate our time, our resources, so we can help them. But we need some information as to what they are feeling, what they're impacted with. And we do anticipate that April was probably the worst in terms of business sales. We're hoping that the second phase survey will show some slight improvement as we've moved into the summer. Moving out of NAVA Retail, a couple more points. We did learn, as I said, that PPE is critical for businesses. So we have found to date that not all business patrons use masks and the businesses lack the resources. People can see that as they're driving around town, and we're hearing that from businesses. So Groton has actually moved forward and ordered a first batch of 1,000 masks. We're hoping that will help businesses. We will hand out a few of these masks. The EDC and also the economic development staff will hand these out as a part of business outreach. We are also focused on a unified business sign for storefronts. That would be on doorways and windows rather than having a hodgepodge message. We are trying to craft something that we can distribute with clear messaging, but maybe more uniformity. The last point I wanted to make is we are planning on moving forward in seeking some community development block grant, small city COVID funding. Again, we are not a federal entitlement community. We don't receive direct federal monies like New London, Bridgeport, Hartford, et cetera. So we have to compete for our funding. We do plan on submitting a grant application. We've been in touch with the Department of Housing, and that funding focuses on preparedness, prevention, and response. We want to target funding for a PPE stockpile: masks, plexiglass, sheet plastic, sanitizer, duct tape, the list goes on. That would be to directly assist not only municipalities, municipal functions within Groton, but would also help the business community and community organizations as well. So we're really trying to build up a community-wide stockpile so that when people have the greatest need in the event that we experience more stress and more problems in the future, that we can be better prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bronk. That was quite a bit of information. We appreciate that and sharing that with us. A lot of it was what we've heard before, but it's always good to have it restated for the public, and certainly interesting about the masks. We had Councilor Bordelon with her hand up.
Mine too.
Thank you. I have a question for the town manager. I know at one of the other meetings we had discussed about installing more soap dispensers in Mystic at the restrooms. I was just wanted to check to see if that's helping down there.
We've had some positive feedback. It was a good idea.
Okay. And then my other question is, I wanted to check on the status of the applications for the tax for people in our community. Are people accessing that? Have people applied? And if so, how many are we looking at currently?
I'm sorry, it went out. The sound went out for a second. Are you talking about the tax deferral?
Yes. Yeah.
Tax payment deferral. Yeah, I sent that out once in one of my weekly things. I forget off the top of my head. There's I think in around somewhere between 12 and 15ish. Do you happen to remember off the top of your head, Mayor, when I sent that out? It's if you give me a while, I might be able to find it in my emails, and I'll report back.
I just didn't know if the number had changed from that is all, and so it's closed now.
Because July 1st was the close of it.
Okay. Yeah. And then my other question is minority recruiting. Is there any way that you can start to report out on, what you guys are doing in your efforts on minority recruiting?
Could we stay on subject?
I am on subject. Thank you. Point of order. I'm asking the town manager a question after his report. I'm asking a question. So
we're talking with EDC right now.
With all due respect, we went from the town manager to EDC without an opportunity to ask a question to the town manager in between. So I'm asking now because the option was available.
Because we are talking COVID at this point. Councilor Bordelon, do you have anything else on COVID recovery at this point?
So when can I ask my questions to the town manager then?
During communications is when you ask your questions. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
During communications is when you ask your questions, when we went around the table.
No, that's not how we've done it in the past. With all due respect, the town manager has spoken, given his report, and then we asked the town manager questions. And then tonight we happen to have Paige Bronk speak, so we didn't have a chance to ask our questions. So I'm asking a question in reference to that. If you'd like to cycle back to me, I would find that to be fair. I have not had a chance to ask my question.
Excuse me.
Councilor Bordelon, let's let the guest speaker who was here, Mr. Bronk, address the issue that is on the table. Councilor Aubry, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I was just wondering, Mr. Bronk, if we've had any businesses that have let you know that they've closed completely.
We have the Green Marble. There was a story on that, but that is being occupied by another store, Bartleby's as well. Likewise, that's being occupied by another opportunity. I was actually listening to some story recently, not about Groton or Connecticut, but nationwide, as some of these businesses have closed for a variety of reasons. Maybe COVID was the catalyst for their closure. It has opened up a lot of opportunities for other innovative businesses or small businesses that are looking to take those storefronts. I think we're seeing that in Groton. So we don't have a long list or have not been notified by many businesses, but those that we're aware of, it seems as though others have stepped in. I have to say, though, that we believe that we probably will not really see the true picture until fall. As a result of summer, most of the small businesses are probably going to make a go of it and see how things might shake out. And we might see more truth later this year.
Thank you.
Are there any other counselors who wanted to question regarding COVID updates and progress? And then we will circle back to Councilor Bordelon. I don't see any other hands. Oh, Councilor Franco is raising her hand. Councilor Franco.
So is there anything the town council can do to assist with businesses in this time? I have heard of things of possibly low interest secured grant, like funding, maybe loans, and maybe for their tax deferments, because I want to thank you for answering a lot of the questions that I had sent out in a questionnaire to the town manager, which stated that our employment in our town is relatively high right now compared to where it normally is. And I'm just wondering, like, what can we as a council do to help, and what should we be discussing may bring forward some things in our community?
Councilor Franco, is that addressed to me, Paige?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think, number one, I believe the council's been highly supportive, even pre-COVID, to economic development and local business development. So I want to start with that. All of you have been involved and engaged, concerned about the COVID impacts to local government. I want to say, though, that the scale of the assistance that's being provided to businesses in need is huge. I don't have the listing in front of me right now, but Sector provided me the listing of all the federal loans provided to Groton businesses. And there were, like I said, over 50 businesses that received assistance. I think the low end was about 100,000 and the high end was maybe closer to $1 million. So that's the scale of the financial impact that's being provided to some of our relatively small Groton businesses. I don't believe that Groton can necessarily provide significant funding on that scale that the federal and the state government can do. So it's up to us to try to find ways to maybe fill voids that are not being provided. So that's why we focused on, the PPE, the signage, the things that maybe we can do better than larger government. I don't think it's necessarily finances that we would provide to local businesses. So the masks, we went ahead and did that, but that may just be the beginning of it. We might find there's a need for more PPE, more signage, more marketing assistance. I think it's that level of assistance that is best suited for our local businesses, rather than try to operate a loan program for businesses. There still is PPP money available, and those businesses can also use private resources as well. And Sector is receiving funding and significant resources to help small businesses. The other thing I would say, the Thames River Innovation Place, they're going to be accepting proposals before September, and there's about $1.5 million where the state wants more focus on COVID. So there are state, federal, regional, and a lot of efforts underway to provide the financial resources that I actually think that are probably better done by them than in trying to deal with it at the municipal level. I'm not sure that answered your question fully, but I'm just not sure that more local grants are necessarily going to help the businesses.
Okay, understood. So then, so we have 12 businesses that open with outdoor dining. And so that was something our town helped the community with. Is there other items such as that nature that we can do to expand things, to make things easier for companies? Maybe if it's not in the financial aspect of it. Because as 50 businesses, just from my perspective, of all the businesses in our community, of all of Groton, if 50 receive PPP, I don't think that's a lot of businesses. And I know as a business manager that the PPP money only goes so far. And and especially coming up on the time, if you're exhausting your PPP, it's going to be extremely hard. And like you said in the answers to some of the questions, this fall will be the big test to see which businesses are going to survive and which ones are going to have to really close shop. So my question, like, I'm trying to find ways that we as a council could help our whole community. I mean, as you said, the unemployment rate is at, like, I believe last I knew from your reporting was like, I believe 12.7, and it was usually at like 3.5 of unemployment, which tells me a lot of people here are out of work, which means a lot of businesses aren't open. And I know some of this is going to get a little bit better as businesses are opening and the state opened up, but what more can we do to try and help? Is there things in planning and zoning? Has the EDC tackled this issue of what they could do to help? Are they having meetings and bringing in businesses to discuss options? I just think there's a lot more things that maybe could be done. I just don't know exactly what the best paths are.
I think that those are excellent questions, and I believe that they should continue to be asked. We're all business advocates, and if I stated that I had the answers or the formulas to all of the business problems today, I would not be telling the truth. I would like to say that I know the answers, but I don't, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing the surveying and we're trying to be creative, because we're learning as we go. It's not a comfortable feeling, but we literally are learning as we go. Any ideas from the council we are receptive to, and any ideas from the public or the business community we are receptive to, and we're trying to adapt. And like we did with the outdoor dining, that was done light speed from municipal government. And I can tell you, as staff, we're happy to get those approved. And there is some discussion about it being somewhat of a test case, a beta, that we had never allowed that really before. But now that it's here, maybe we want to consider permanent changes with outdoor dining. Maybe there's a way that'll help local businesses. Just circling back around, I do know that immediate cash flow is the #1 challenge for businesses, and the tax deferment was something that the council could act on. At the state level, I was always hoping that they would deal with possibly some of the payroll taxes and try to give some more cash to businesses, but I don't believe that really happened. Maybe locally, as we get more data on the property tax deferment, maybe we revisit that, find out if we need to do more. If people continue to experience pain, maybe that's something that we should extend if we believe there's demand for that.
Thank you, Mr. Bronk. We are in communication still, and we still have other counselors who have questions. Councilor Heed, is your question in regard to COVID, or are you, because we need to go back to Councilor Bordelon as well. What is your question, sir?
My question had to do with, are we adjusting zoning in the long term to help restaurants outdoors? But I don't think it's necessary right now.
Thank you. So then we will circle back. Thank you, Mr. Bronk, for the information. Councilor Bordelon, we're going back to you for one more question under communications, and then we need to move on with the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, first off, with all due respect, since I have the floor, I appreciate the presentation by our special guest, Paige Bronk, our economic development, but it wasn't even on the agenda. And so for one to fluently move through this, and for full transparency, it would be helpful to add that to the agenda so that our constituents are able to access that information and know what was going to be talked about tonight. And moving from the manager's report in future, if you could kindly have a break so that one could answer or ask questions then before introducing the special guests and rolling right into it, that would help me to kind of know where I should ask those questions. Thank you. My question is, in terms of minority recruiting, I know that we look to fund that and we keep bringing it up. It was something that I brought up from the start here. And I was wondering if there's a way we can start to collect data and see the data on our process in this town on how we're minority recruiting, and some reports back on that. I think it's important. We can just say we're minority recruiting, but I think data is important to have, and information to show the public what we're doing, especially the town council, to kind of know what avenues we're taking, what resources have been reached, and where we're getting information back from.
Sure. And if the council would like, I could give you a quick overview of where we post, just so you're familiar with that, and then we can do data as we go along. Besides, of course, posting on the town website and things like Indeed.com, and then the day newspaper, we do Diversity.com, which has several subsets: VeteransConnect.com, HispanicDiversity.com, DisabilityConnect.com, OutAndEqual.com, AllDiversity.com, iRecruit, ZipRecruiter, GMTV, and then we email several area churches, the ones that we reached out to pretty much every area church to see if they were willing to post jobs as they come open. And so we've been sending them to all the ones that replied, and then as well as to the New London NAACP. But I will, as things go along, I will send reports to the council, and I'll get you something soon.
Thank you. I think it would be helpful to see like who's actually applying, and what is our practice currently as far as how long we keep a position open before we close a position, to really make sure that we're actually taking the time to recruit in those areas.
There's no set time, but we keep them open quite a while, because we don't get about the clerical positions, about the only one we get a lot of recruits for. Most of our positions are painfully long how long they're open, just because not a lot of people want to work for government nowadays. So they're usually open, with our process, they're usually open a couple months.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I think it would be kind of helpful to kind of look at some of the urban areas, Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford, really tap into the resources there and let people in that area know that we are recruiting down here. And it's not abnormal for someone to take a job and live within the 30-minute radius to commute either, between here in Hartford or here in Bridgeport or here in New Haven. We do live in a very diverse area. I think that's a great start. I know initially there wasn't much being done, so this is an improvement, but I would like to start to data collect and see how what we can do to improve and where we might be missing. Thank you.
Sure. I did neglect to say, when I mentioned the churches, we also sent it to several New London churches, just to mention that.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. We are on to item 4, approval of minutes. Councilor Baumgartner, would you like to move approval of the minutes, please?
Yes, no problem, Madam Mayor. I will make a motion. Let me just pull it up a second. Sorry. I will make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Sorry, it's loading.
That's okay. It's July 4th.
Yeah.
Second.
July 4th, 2020, so moved.
Second.
So that motion was to approve the minutes of July 14th, and that was moved by Gardner and seconded by Bordelon. Any discussion on the minutes? Clarifications on the minutes, please. Councilor Franco.
I believe it is on page 4. It says, it's like the second to the bottom paragraph. It says, in response to Councilor Baumgartner, Town Attorney Dugan stated that a police commission can oversee and manage a police department by statute. I believe it should say can't or cannot.
A police commission can. That's the only other form that was currently at that time allowed to provide oversight. Like in Stonington, they have a police commission.
Thank you.
Which is not a.
Okay, I misinterpreted then. Thank you.
Councilor Bordelon, anything on the minutes?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I thought the minutes were excellent this week, and I really appreciate the hard work that went into them. I think I thought that the the way that everything was written was clear and pretty straightforward to what was said. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Seeing other hands, we will vote on acceptance of the minutes of July 14th, 2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously with 8 councilors. We are on to new business. This is item 2020-499, Open Space Plan for Groton, Conservation Commission presentation. This begins on page 10 in your packet. There is no action required. And we have with us tonight several members of the Conservation Commission, including Mr. Dunn and Mr. Olson. I'm not sure if anyone else is here. Ms. Fitzpatrick, perhaps, correct? And Mr. Dunn, I will turn this over to you, sir.
All right. Are you letting me share the screen?
Go right ahead, sir.
Yep. Okay. So I'll be doing this without screen sharing. I'll just do it off of the presentation.
Oh, I thought you said you could take care of that.
I just promoted him to panelist so he can screen share.
And council, you all have this in your packet, and for the members of the public, it is also in the packet that is posted online, and it will be included here as part of the meeting. And I'll shut up now.
I'm sure it was.
Andre, you look so serious.
Hi, Leanne.
No, when it did a rejoin, it threw me off and it had to reset. So sorry about that. All right. There we go. Are we in business? All right. I appreciate the opportunity to present the status report. I think to start, I'd like to recognize the members of the Conservation Commission that's worked over more than the last 15 months to create this, that being, with Bray Rafferty, Michelle Fitzpatrick, Christine Desante, Tom Olson, and Ann Schmidt. So I did want to give a shout out to them. So as we're talking about the open space plan, is intended to be a resource to the town and all the citizens. It is 100 pages, so it's pretty long, and contains a lot of fact-based references and studies that articulate the social, health, and economic benefits of open space. The structure of the plan allows any of the readers via hyperlink to access the more than 80 cited references that we've included in it. What I'd like to talk about today is fairly straightforward. I'm going to talk about the timeline for the plan and where we are at, the objectives, priorities, and we have had community input on the initial draft. And we do want to talk about some of the key recommendations that have occurred as a result of our creation of this plan. In terms of the timeline, we're now in phase 2. We'll talk a little later about the responses we've got back from the community. Phase 2 review then goes to the next level, which is to the town staff, the town manager, all of you, and any additional feedback would result in our final publication in October. And part of that final publication will be a complimentary outreach for the community that's friendlier, that could be done on the town website, et cetera. And we'll be doing that in coordination with the Parks and Rec Department and for their use as well. Now into the objectives. It has 4 major objectives. The first is basically an inventory, which is harder than it seems. And we can talk about that a little later. The second objective is to really look at that open space and the open space plan that we put together recognizes that it's a balance between open space and intelligent development. It's not one or the other. Both are necessary for the vibrant, economically sound community. As stated in the Groton Economic Development Plan, quality of place is a key component in attracting business to Groton. The third objective is that we need to understand and improve our responsibilities to manage the open space that we have. So we'll actually be expanding on this in a support document that really focuses on stewardship, and we could chat about that as a follow-on action item. The fourth and final objective is to deliver on the charter responsibilities. As you probably know, the Conservation Commission has very specific defined responsibilities that's in the state statute, and we wanted to make sure we did that. So what I'd like to do is, for the next section, is turn this over to Tom to talk about priorities, and we'll get to the end and be able to take questions. So Tom?
Thank you, Larry. One of the things that I just want to kind of supplement what Larry had to say in our objectives here is that the document, as far as we've been authoring it here, is really to kind of put a reference point in the stake of the ground, how we go off about our decision-making process, kind of turn it into a workbook for future commissions members, and also to take a look at scientific facts, economic principles, and then put all that together as a commission. And what we did is to come up with 7 overarching priorities to determine how to go forward with open space acquisition. And so our primary purpose here is our first priority is to complete the proposed green belts. If you want to go ahead, Larry. We have the map here of our proposal. This is expands on what's already in the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development, or your POCD. The POCD introduced the concept of the green belts. And also, if you recall, back in February of 2019, the Parks and Recs Department came forward to the Town Council and asked for approval to go forward to the state for a designation of these green belts to upgrade them to the state greenway process. However, that was not approved, and so we feel as a Conservation Commission to go forward with that, clean that process up, expand on this, including better linkage to the greenways that are established over in New London and up in Ledyard, and also to kind of reroute a few of the greenways to better utilization of the open space that we have, and also to reflect our reviews relative to critical habitat areas. The greenways can be used both for animal traffic as well as human traffic. So that's the first area. The second area of our priorities has to do with addressing areas significant to the coastline. Climate change is resulting in rising sea levels. Groton continues to address these impacts through resiliency and sustainability task force actions. We've been in communication with them. They've reviewed our plans here. Our continued effort is to assess the best land use that will be future high-value marshes, and also to identify the areas that are being utilized by the Yukon Institute of Resilience and Climate Adaptation, or CIRCA, and the future work that's been for the recently awarded Connecticut National Estuary Research Reserve, or NER, which is going to be located at Avery Point, Haley Farm, and Bluff Point. Our third priority is to take a look at natural and drinking water resources. And we're relying greatly on the work that's been done by Groton Utilities, as they've invested significant efforts in identification and development of future open space acquisitions to expand their reservoir capacity in the northern parts of Groton, particularly supporting the Great Brook and the Haley watersheds. And we strongly endorse those plans and want to work with them to get those moving forward into better fruition. Our next priority is for the woodlands and carbon sequestration. currently, the statewide on a statewide basis, the tree canopy is about 61%, which is identical to what Groton has, a 61% tree canopy in the town. And the state feels that that's a canopy that's supportive of carbon sequestration, but you can't take any hits against it. That you need to at least maintain this as the minimum. So what we're looking for is to be more actively tracking what our carbon, our sequestration and canopy relationship is, to take a look at how future developments are in regard to doing clear cutting, such as what happened up at the middle school. I know this has been, the council's addressed this recently in the past, in regard to where are we going to restore that canopy. In regard, and also to take a look at it from an action perspective, take a look at what's in the subdivision development rules and regulations, to take a look at and better tracking of those type of steps to counter these losses, in addition to the infestation and climate changes impacts that are also threatening the canopy. Moving on to our fifth area of priorities is the preservation of the native flora and fauna. The state of Connecticut provides a natural diversity database. It's online, identifies for each town the general areas that critical habitats exist. We have a number in Groton here, but we also have combined that with the Nature Conservancy's Nature's Network database to where over half of Groton is either classified a Tier 1 highly important, a Tier 2 important, or a Tier 3 land connector areas that are all worthy of protection. And so what we've done is melded our recommendations for these high priority areas to coincide with the Greenbelt areas in our recommendations going forward. Our sixth area is to take a look at preservation of natural heritage resources. Groton has multiple locations that meet the state standards for this classification. Funding is available for acquisition and protecting these lands, either through the state utilizing their authorities and the Natural Heritage Trust Program where they would go off and purchase a piece of land, or alternatively, the town could purchase it and utilize funding such as the Open Space and Watershed Acquisition or OSWA grant program is partially funding up to 75% of the appraised value through an annual competitive process, which is what we're doing right now with the Watros property. And the seventh and final priority is a natural resource-based outdoor recreation. Outdoor spaces that be considered this area are targeted really to support parks and recreation efforts. Obviously, they're going through their master plan review right now, and we're supporting that and look forward to see what their recommendations are and to make sure that we're in coordination with them. So that wraps up the 7 priority areas that were presented in the plan. We went off and got public comments through the month of June. We completed an initial draft and had that posted on the town website, and we received some comments, but we also received comments from GOSA and Avalonia, from the task force, and from the Groton conservation advocates as a principal, as well as other members of staff and people that had picked up the comments. And we've generalized, basically, as you see in the presentation here, we kind of generalized the principal areas of where the comments were, and we've addressed all those in a forward changing. We'll be reviewing those at our upcoming meeting next month, and then having that'll be a finalized phase 2 draft that we'll be putting out to the town staff and also to the council here. Larry, did you have anything else you want to talk about on this slide?
No, I think you said it well, and I think we'll get into some recommendations, and then we'll go for some questions.
Okay. The key on the next slide here is we have, in addition to the 7 priorities, the Commission's also developed 7 recommendations that we're going to require future action by the town council. So we'll just focus in on those. First off is expanding the green bar, similar to what we've already mentioned here with the Watros property. Is we'll be coming back on future OSWA grants, and also the funding issues that go along with that to maximize the stable funding opportunities through the state opportunities for the purchase by the town here. We'll also, in the next area, is consideration of the space protection ordinance. The town of Cheshire has a very detailed ordinance that we found is extremely applicable for being able to outlining what are the allowed and prohibited activities that would be on town open space. Right now, the town doesn't have any kind of rules to go by. So it kind of leaves it up to do you want people with to do different things, do hang gliding or whatever, but it's all outlined in the Cheshire one, as well as it also talks about in regard to how do you put the whole stewardship plan in place, and who has the responsibility between the Conservation Commission, Parks and Recs, in regard to getting a long-term plan for stewardship. One good example is you have the 43-acre Birch Plain property, which is just south of the Pequannock Road and High Rock Roads, has been in town possession since 1975, and basically nothing has been done to it. There's no stewardship, and it's land that could be better utilized. And that just gives you as an example that we need to go back and using our inventory, figure out where we need to have stewardship plans put in place, because not everything is being taken care of by Parks and Recs. They have their areas that they want to utilize that are trailed and stuff, but there's other areas that are not, that are still town property that needs to have better stewardship applied to it. The next area is the potential subdivision regulations, as I mentioned, with the tree canopy. That would have to come back to the town council for any type. And we're also working with the tree warden from Public Works to make sure that that gets better implementation. And lastly, we would strongly support the CIP 8 Bravo, which has been in the town budget for the last couple of years. But next year is the first time it actually has a funding line that's attached to it for $25,000. And we fully request that as you go through, I know it's every year it comes to areas to come up and we take a look at it as an easy cut. But this is something that we need to get in place. It's been approved through the POCD. It's been put in the funding and well in advance here, and we just need to follow through as we go forward, because money talks in regard, and we also need to make sure that we stick with the plan that we put in place and fully encourage this. So that's all I have in regard to council recommendations for the council. Larry?
Yeah, I think our intent is that there's a lot of, as I said, a lot of information and data in the document. But key from the town council's point of view is the 40, I think we're up to 43 specific recommendations that we do want to come back after this next release and update to really talk about it and to get your support in the execution of those, because a number of them certainly can be done by the Conservation Commission, but a significant number of them needs to be done and supported by the town staff. So I think I'll pause at this point and open it for questions that anyone might have on where we're at and what the intent of the document is.
Very good. And then if councilors have specific questions about the content, then would you like those questions emailed directly to you, sir?
Yeah, well, specifically probably next week or the end of next week, we're going to be putting out the updated document with the responses from the community. And certainly we would welcome any comments you have on that. But if there's anything that we can help you with today, then we do that. But I know you're pressed for time, and I'll leave it up to you.
So I see Councilor Heed has his hand up. So Councilor Heed.
Thank you. Two questions. First one, when can we get a copy of the report, or is there access online?
Well, the first version of the report is out there online today. As I said, towards the end of next week, we expect to get the second version out. So my recommendation would be to wait for that second version. We will be sending a cover letter directly to you with a link to the town website where the document will be stored.
All right. And the second question on the, can't get it to not cover. Oh, the step 1 plan establishes 7 priorities, including a complete and expand proposed green belts. Are these green lines, are you suggesting those are trails in between green areas? I'm not sure what that is.
All right, the green belts themselves are several fold. One is there's animal access and there's people access. So you're going to distinguish between the two. And from time to time, there is the use of roadways to make some connection to the extent possible. And I'll ask Tom to weigh in on this as well. The intent is to provide a direct access. Let me go back up to that. Whoops. The direct access to get to link the various properties together. So you can kind of see the purples and the browns, et cetera. That's where there's certainly access to it. Tom, do you want to add a little bit on the mechanisms on the trails?
Well, the green belts are basically were established in the POCD, your plan of for conservation development, and we've expanded on this. And what this reflects our expansion in regard to, like, there's connectivity going from the reservoirs east, to the west to New London, going over the bridge. We've also kind of multitasted things along connecting along the Mystic River to expand on these to basically do a better job of utilizing the open spaces that we have, and also take a look at these high value areas to ensure that we're going to be linking these, whether there be in some areas that these will be trailed, other areas they will just there's passage for animals. In other areas, these are critical areas where we want to focus on future procurement and acquisition of open space properties. So some of these where you'll see a white space connecting brown or green or purple areas, because that's basically the property owners. The dark green is the state. The purple areas are the town areas that are, such as the parks, Pequot Woods and stuff. And the very light greens are areas that are owned by GOSA or Avalonia, the privately held land trust areas. And then the brown areas are areas that are considered part of the 490 or agriculture and forested areas that are privately held, but that are basically being utilized in supporting open space, particularly from an animal and flora and fauna perspective. So what we're trying to do is making sure that those areas are getting connected as best as possible, taking a look at and putting priority on acquisitions of getting those linkages all the way. And that's where one of the things that by having the designation as a state green way, as opposed to just a local green belt, helps you get better support relative to additional funding. So that's in the council, we really applaud the council's support of that. And what we're going to try to do is work with Parks and Recs to get that instituted in the next go around with the state.
All right, thank you, sir.
We have Councilor Baumgartner, and then I'm Nikki as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and big thanks to Larry and Tom for your very thorough and in-depth discussion. I had the privilege of presentation. I had the privilege of listening to this presentation maybe a month and a half ago, or a little over a month ago. And since then, you've taken this plan on the roadshow, and look forward to obviously supporting this plan. And think this could really serve as a guiding document to policymakers such as ourselves, as we're considering what properties, are a priority to purchase to help us get to and above and exceed our open space goal, and preserving, the state mandated goal, as well as the goal of many of, several councilors on this, body, to ensure that, if we purchase additional open space and maintain the open space we have, we'll be mitigating. That is the best tool to mitigate climate change in the long run. So I will write a letter in support. And my only question and a comment just on the plan, I think number 6, you talked about natural resources, and I think, natural heritage resources. And so, about the importance of maintaining, whether it's flora and fauna or cultural resources. And in the case of one of the properties this council is deliberating on in terms of applying for a grant, the Watchers property, that holds, and this is public knowledge at this point, but holds a significant number of Native American heritage, cultural. I guess it is a part of a Native American cultural site, and so just about in terms of prioritization, that sites like that, that a cultural, the cultural importance of that site should be a factor in determining the importance of purchasing or that site. So I think that shouldn't be overlooked either, and maybe it should be stated explicitly. That should be a goal in addition to obviously protecting the flora and fauna, just because we have so many cultural resources, not just Native American, but also since dating back to the colonization of the town. So with that, I have nothing further, but again, thank you for all your hard work, and I look forward to seeing the final product.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in and take my turn before we go on. I just wanted to say I was pleased with seeing the preliminary report here, and I look forward to the final product. And it was interesting looking at the green belt. I had a conversation with Mayor Hedrick in a social setting, and I was talking about how I would like to see some trails on the King property. And he said, that's funny because I would like to see some trails here and possibly connect. So in the future, perhaps we can look at that and maybe work on somehow connecting the city trails to new trails that might be able to be put in at the King property. So I'm encouraged to see this plan, and I look forward to moving forward with it. And I thank you all for your time on this. I know it's a lot of time and energy, and you guys have been very good and responsible members of the commission. So thank you so much. And I believe we have Councilor Bordelon in the queue next.
Thank you. Actually, it was some of the same things I was actually going to say regarding the city. When looking at that map, one of the things that stood out to me is the lack of accessibility in the city side and the need for, those connectabilities and more open green space over there. Looking at it, I mean, I know it's not a great scale map in the sense that to really kind of pinpoint in, but looking at it, it screams to me the need for green space and connectability through the city. And so that drew me to the next part of my question is, are you guys exclusively the town and Mystic, or do you guys also collaborate with the city side?
I'll answer that. This is Tom Olson. We have made a similar presentation to this early on about 2 or 3 months ago with the Conservation Commission for the city of Groton. Mm-hmm. They freely admitted to me that, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus here, but that 99% of their efforts are focused on inland wetland issues because they are combined inland wetlands and Conservation Commission, and that they would gladly take a look at our plan and take it under advisement. And that's all I can say. But I went to the meeting and provided testimony of an overview similar to what you received tonight.
So the push to advocate for keeping some of that space in the city, you guys are pushing the information out when you do your presentation to include the city areas that could be protected and should be protected as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know sometimes it's town heavy, and I know we're town council, but when I look at all of Groton, I think one side of town is very underserved as far as having that accessibility to trails and parks and open space. And it's a side of town that needs it even more than some of the other areas, in my opinion. They're not in the sense that one side deserves more than the other, but the need for that type of lifestyle and engagement is lacking on this side of town. And I hope that some changes will be coming, and I'd like to see that green trail and accessibility open through all of Groton, and working in collaboration with some of the protected space and waterways in the city side, and really kind of narrowing all of that in when we talk about it. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you again, members of the Conservation Commission. And councilors, if you have specific questions that you come up with or concerns, please get them out in an email to, send them to Mr. Dunn, and then he can disseminate them to the rest of the commission, correct?
That would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you for coming out tonight and for your work. We appreciate it. All right, the next items on the agenda are 5B, 5C, and 5D. These are Councilor Perry's referrals, and we will keep them for the next POW. That way we can come back to them when Councilor Perry is here to speak to these 3 issues. And that would be the bridge repairs, the extension of sewer and municipal water, and tax abatement for seniors, disabled, and veterans. So we will hold off on those for this evening, which brings us to 5E, which is Affordable Housing Plan Grant. And I believe this is on page 30. And I believe we are on Councilor Parker, please.
I make a motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute all grant documents and accept grant funding for the Affordable Housing Plan Technical Assistant Grants. I so move.
Second, Bordelon.
Moved by Parker and seconded by Bordelon. Mr. Burt, is Mr. Reiner or Mr. Bronk here to speak to this, or Ms. Jones is here? I'm not sure who you want to speak to this.
Whichever would like to.
Yeah, this is John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development. Thank you. So we did receive this grant. When we received authorization from the council to apply for the grant, we just didn't ask for authorization to also accept the grant. So that's what we're asking for today.
Okay, do councilors have questions? Councilor Bordelon, is your hand from this item or from the prior? And I didn't lower it. From this item? You have the floor.
Thank you. Looking at this, what is the exact plan of that money to be used? Is it earmarked for something in particular, or just building a base, or, and then I had another follow-up question to that.
So the state had grants, so every municipality has to have an affordable housing plan. They have not defined what is required in that plan. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of the base money to start that process. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot that we can do with affordable housing. You know, there's a lot of things that are coming out from the discussions I think that we're having as a nation about equity, equality, and how zoning falls into that, and housing, affordable housing. You know, today a number of us listened to a webinar on the missing middle housing, which is another type of affordable housing, not the deed restricted, but making sure that, you know, working families have housing. So we want to figure out a way to address how we're getting the best variety of housing types and housing that people can afford for, you know, working families in Groton.
Okay, because that's kind of where I was going with this. You know, when I came onto the council, I know it was a push for all economic development, which is what I support. But I really think, looking at some of the models where you have housing, where you have all income levels, all branched in a community, to start to break down those disparities where you have low income housing in a section or subdivision of town as a whole. Also sitting in on the Board of Ed meeting yesterday, one of the things that they're looking at with redistricting, one of the plans, I stayed up late last night after that meeting to research, to get more information of areas that do a great job with this, and more urban areas and more out west, taking these funds and monies and their plan. You don't have to keep redistricting minority students around the town if you actually make the affordable housing in all areas of our districts. Therefore, our districts are fully represented and have affordable housing and all income levels based. When you look at the map of Groton, and I was looking at it last night when they're looking at the redistricting, it struck a chord in me that we do have a problem here in Groton, and we need to move towards having affordable housing in all areas of our town. That it's not just, you're almost isolating a culture and a community of people to one area, and it becomes this stereotype. And then there's another section of town where it has its own. When you change that model and move and have affordable working class, low income class, upper middle class housing dispersed evenly throughout the town of Groton in their districts, you lower the risk or need for those redistricting plans, because now you've created the environment in such that allows for people to live all over Groton. So I'm excited for this, and it's overdue. And the plan that's here, I forget the exact term on it, but there is you're disenfranchising people when we put them all in one area and say, here you go, in our town, that's the way it's set up. So I hope to look forward to seeing us moving as we look at new development in this town, not just this expensive housing that the new young hipsters want or young people or the retirees, but also housing that's going to be that mixed use idea in the sense of not just mixed use space, but mixed use space with mixed use incomes all kind of coming together. Because when you do that, you then pull in the strengths of the whole community. Thank you.
Yeah, I think all your comments are right on point. A lot of what we've been talking about in the planning community for the last 15 years has been much of what you just talked about. Kind of the older model was, all right, you get money, you build an affordable housing development. Great, we built affordable housing, let's move on. We solved the problem, and we need to have more integration. One of the other big things that our market analysis really focused on was it's not all about just building businesses. And a lot of people initially thought, oh, okay, so economic development, we're going to build more business. No, we need to have housing for the people who live here, who work here, to live here. And that's housing of all income levels, yes, all affordability levels. So a great economically development, diverse community has a lot of, the housing types. And that's something that we really need to focus on. So yes, we will spend many nights talking about just this topic alone. Perfect. So I think your points are all spot on.
And I just think it's also very important that one should not be identified when a person goes home to their house. It shouldn't be identified as an area. When you break up that, you allow people to feel that they're not being categorized in an area, and they shouldn't have to identify. No one should know where you're really living if it's truly spread out accordingly. Thank you so much for doing this.
Councilor Aubry? You're muted, Councilor Aubry.
I just want to mention, I'm sure that our planners are looking at it as a possible thing to make that happen. Other communities, what they've done, and I'm sure Mr. Reiner is very familiar with it, but the town actually owns the properties, and then housing is built on it, and it can be built right in conjunction with a subdivision that's going in or whatever it might be. But because of the fact that the town owns the land, the housing is more affordable. And it's done in a way that it becomes part of the whole community. And as time goes on, those properties are transferred. There's still going to be a different pricing because of the fact that there's no land cost. And I've seen it work. One of the places closest that's done it was Fisher's Island. So I think it's a real way to create a very nice mix as your neighborhoods go up. So I hope we'll be looking towards that, Mr. Reiner.
We will be looking at all options. I also want to just set some clear expectations. This grant was not for a lot of money. In the last couple of places that I've worked prior to coming to Groton, we did a lot of work on affordable housing plans, a substantial amount of affordable housing construction. And a lot of times those plans, I'm going back 10 years ago, were in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. They took a lot more money and effort. So depending on how deep we go into this, I think some of it will be able to utilize some staff time, looking at some outside consultants. But as we start getting a handle on scoping out what we want to address through this affordable housing plan, this grant might help pay for step one in crafting almost kind of the vision and a general framework, but it might not. I guarantee you this grant won't be able to pay for everything that we're looking for to come out in a plan and zoning changes and other implementation measures. But if this is a good first step, and I'm excited to start working and having those conversations on these topics.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner. It's a good thing you received the grant. We're very happy about that. And this is the second kind of bite at it that the council has had as we approved the application, and now we're approving the acceptance tonight. So I don't think anybody will object to, I hope no one objects to accepting the grant. I'm not seeing any other hands, so I will call for a vote on 2020-189 Affordable Housing Plan Grant. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes unanimously, 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Thank you very much. And I believe you guys are still here for 2020-492 acceptance of open space Mystic Hollow subdivision. And this is on to Councilor Franco, please.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution to accept the 2.4 acres of land at the Mystic Hollow re-subdivision, Sandy Hollow Road, for park, open space, and recreational purposes. I so move.
Second, Parker.
Moved by Franco and moved by Parker. Mr. Reiner, did you want to speak to this?
So Deb Jones is also on the line with me on this item. So again, accepting some open space associated with a subdivision in town.
So this is a 6-lot subdivision that was approved in 2018. It's on the north side of Sandy Hollow Road and on the west side of Cow Hill Road. Approximately 2.4 acres that the Planning and Zoning Commission determined was appropriate for open space because Bindless Brook runs through a corner of it, and it protects the wetlands that are associated with it, as well as some uplands.
Thank you. And I think we all were here when this was brought to us for acceptance. So the subdivision rather. Councilor Heed, I see your hand, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm obviously in support of this, but my question is, once we take possession, what do we do to maintain open space, such as this? Do we remove invasive species? Do we clean it up? How do we normally manage our open space?
So this type of open space does not have any public improvements associated with it. So the Parks and Rec Department will be responsible for maintaining it. I've walked the property. There are no invasive species at this point, but it will be monitored for that sort of thing. It's also adjacent, well, across the road from a piece that's held by Avalonia that also includes Bindless Brook. And so I would anticipate some coordination with Avalonia as to the management of this.
And I see no other hands. So we will vote on 2020-492 acceptance of open space Mystic Hollow subdivision. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously, 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Thank you very much. Mr. Reiner, Ms. Jones, we appreciate that. And we are on to 5G, 2020-335-3 Noang School Property disposition. This was on page 34. And this is a continuation of our conversation from a prior cow, I believe the cow of June 23rd, if I've got my notes correct. And at this point, we have 3 items on the floor. We have one motion that was to endorse an old Brian Kent plan, a second motion to endorse the Noank Woods plan, and a third motion for regulation size fields and other items from the Kent plan. And I'm going to take this opportunity to start the discussion by saying that, you know, we are a council of 9 tonight. We are a council of 8, but we work by majority rules. And sometimes when you have a council and you have a majority system, you compromise in order to move forward and to make progress on an issue. And having said that, we have been presented with a compromise plan, and you all received it in your mail. And as such, I would like to withdraw my motion, which is the second motion, which is the Noank Woods proposal. My second on that was Councilor Heed. Councilor Heed, would you withdraw your second?
Yes, ma'am.
So the motion for the Noank Woods proposal made by Granatowski and seconded by Heed has been withdrawn. So now we have two motions on the floor. And at this point, I believe, Councilor Melendez, did you wish to speak on an item on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to move the updated Kent Frost plan.
Have the floor, sir.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the Kent Frost concept master plan for Groton Noan Community Park and Garden dated July 28th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Baumgartner?
Yes.
Moved by Melendez and seconded by Baumgartner. So this becomes the third motion on the floor. And just for clarification, that was to, you're moving acceptance of the Kent Frost plan that was presented to us on July 28th, moved by Melendez and seconded by Baumgartner. Is that correct, Councilor Melendez and Baumgartner?
Yeah.
Councilor Melendez, did you wish to speak to this item since you moved this?
Yeah. So I think we've had a lot of discussion on this, and we've come to sort of this point through a lot of compromise. At the beginning, there was sort of three paths we could have taken: the development, the open space, and the fields. I think this is a compromise between the open space and the fields. I do believe that, and I may be a minority, but I do believe that the type of field that goes there should not be decided on today. But I do think that this is a good compromise plan that everyone should be able to support. And I'd just like to hear everybody's sort of opinions on it, including whether or not you think the type of field should be decided on today. Thank you.
Okay, we have Councilor Franco, Granatowski, Bordelon, and Aubry.
So I would, I have prepared something to say. And with this new item that just came up that I didn't know anything that was coming, but it seemed a little planned to me. But I don't understand what the plan is. First of all, I see a picture and that's all I know. It's a picture with a field. It basically doesn't look too much different than what the last plan looked like. And there's no details of what's expected from this plan. It shows a Christmas tree area. So nobody has stated what happens to that area after the Christmas trees are gone. It shows no walking path that many people have requested. It doesn't show anything that anybody's discussed anything with Parks and Rec. People are discussing this with Kent Frost or Chad Frost or whoever they are. And I believe they live right there near the garden. I mean, knowing school property. So I prepared something to read here that is in regards to my motion. So I would like to clarify my motion that is on the floor. My motion states that there would be a regulation-sized sports field, a general field, along with the park amenities in the surrounding area. My motion is exactly the same as option one, which was the Kent Frost plan, which contains a game field and park amenities. Though instead of pickup games, as in motion one, a regulation-sized sports field would be used for an organized sport. There are numerous types of solo fields that could fit on this property, whether it be town or school field. Just a few weeks ago, we heard about the girls' field hockey team doesn't have their own field. They play and practice on the high school's baseball outfield. What about a 50-70 baseball field for Little League age children, which Little League has stated not having a 50-70 field is holding them back? What about a soccer or lacrosse field? The 6 acres of the land is more than enough to fit any of these types of fields. Also, regulation sports fields do not need to be fenced and the vast area of the park would be wide open with no games or practices that are being held. Nor does more parking need to be added, as 30 parking spaces would accommodate one sports field. Also, I'd like to clarify the cost. I believe the cost is far less than the 1 million or the 7 to 10 million that has been suggested. I'm not a sports field developer, but I Googled other places that have built them, and I found a 6-field baseball complex was 1.5 million to 2 million. A newly constructed intermediate 50 to 70 baseball field was between 75 to 150,000. $200,000 in another location to build the baseball field alone, without dugouts, bleachers, or a scoreboard. They would add another 122,000 to the cost to fully outfit it would be 343,000. The average cost for a premier soccer top sale base field, tiled, drained, silt drained, irrigation lit, fully fenced with bleachers, players, bleachers, and goalposts is approximately 332,000. Budgeting for the sports field construction. Though some of these costs would not pertain to the Knowing property, as there's no need for a scoreboard, bleachers, or a fence surrounding the property. If the sports field motion carries, I would also like to apply for a small town economic assistance program. It's a STEEP grant to assist paying for the new sports field at the Knowing property. North Branford received $350,000 grant to help Wall Field relocate their Little League fields. Many have said they would like the property to remain a quiet space. I would like to bring your attention to Quantic Plains and to Sutton Park, which are abutted up against residents' backyards. Those areas were once also open space at one time, and putting in those parks have greatly advanced both sports and a sense of community in Groton. Some have said the town should use SB Butler for fields when that school is closed. SB Butler is a school property, extremely similar to the Knowing school property. It is tucked inside a quiet neighborhood, though it already has 2 baseball fields on it. And the fields are abutted against neighbors' backyards and has been used by Little League on weekends and after school without neighbor issues for as long as I can recall. As for the people who wrote in stating they wanted the property to remain open space, there is a consensus of this council to keep the property and not sell to developers. And the 3 motions on the floor are varying options of open space. Since the 3 motions were put on the floor for a decision on June 23rd, residents of Groton took notice. The majority of emails received by the council support a regulation-sized sports field on the Knowing school property. In closing, no, actually not in closing, I'd like to also notate that I kept track of each one of these emails. I've read every single one. There are people, I have 14 people that would like the park to remain exactly the way it is without any kind of upgrades as open space. There are people that would like it to be Groton Housing Authority on it. A few people would like it to be sold. Very few just said an arboretum. And others say they wanted a park. But the overwhelming majority was for sports fields. So then, if we decide, or if the council decides to go with the Kent Frost plan, as I've already said, it is a picture, which means if we pass it, we have to do what the picture says to do. And when you cut down the Christmas trees, what are you going to do? Are we going to replant the Christmas trees? Exact same space? And I mean, instead of allowing Parks and Rec maybe to decide what should go in for park amenities, I don't think the council should decide that. I also think if there's going to be a field on there, it should be for sports that are organized. And I don't think the council should decide which field it should be. Well, maybe they should, but we should get recommendations. So with that being said, I'd like to amend my own motion then. So I'd like to withdraw my 3rd motion.
Give me 1 second, please. So your second was Bordelon. So Councilor Bordelon, do you withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second. Thank you.
1 moment, please. So for the record and the people who are doing minutes, Councilor Franco is withdrawing her motion for regulation size field and other items from the Kent plan. Councilor Bordelon has withdrawn her second. Councilor Franco, am I to understand you wish to make an amendment now or make a new proposal?
I'm making a new motion. I make a motion to put in a regulation size sports field for organized sports with recommendations from the Sports Task Force, Parks and Rec, and the Groton school system on which field would be best.
Is there a second?
I'm not finished. I was giving you time to write.
Oh, go ahead.
With remaining space on the property filled with park amenities as recommended by Parks and Recreation.
Second, Bordelon.
I wasn't sure if she was done or not, so give me a second, please.
Well, you got it anyway. Second, Bordelon. I already said it.
Read it back. So Councilor Franco has withdrawn her original motion. The second was withdrawn by Councilor Bordelon. Councilor Franco is proposing a new motion for a regulation field for organized sports, considering the recommendation of the Athletics Fields Task Force, Parks and Recreation, and Board of Ed as to which field will be put in place, with the remaining space on the property filled with amenities as recommended by Parks and Recreation. Councilor Franco, is that correct?
Yes.
And Councilor Bordelon seconded that motion. Correct, Councilor Bordelon? You're good with the way it was read?
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I'm going to second her motion. Absolutely.
Okay, so we have that motion on the floor. All right, so we have several people in the queue. I was next. I will yield to Councilors Bordelon, Obrey, and Baumgartner, and I'll come back to it in a minute.
With all due respect to the proposal that came through, it came through. What time did we get that? Today at what, like 3:23? Is that correct? Is that when we received it? Does anyone? That's because that's when it came through on my email. And as a working person right now, I skimmed it, but it's there's not enough on it. I mean, that doesn't give me time to really ask constituents what they feel about that plan. Can someone read the plan into the record? Because since it has not been discussed before, we received it, but I think it would be important that someone fully explain that plan that's being presented that came through at 3:23 today. I need more time to look that over and really see what does that mean. It's a vague drawing. It has some great things to it, but I feel it's kind of rushed at last minute in the afternoon. And I'll be honest, I haven't had much time to review it, getting home from work at 5 and trying to attend this meeting and dinner. Wasn't expecting it either. So maybe we should talk more about what that plan is. I respect Councilor Franco's motion on the floor as well, but I think for the record, we should really talk about exactly what those changes are from the plan that was originally presented and take the due diligence and the time to talk about that on the record. I also was doing some research too, and I think in whatever plan we go with, I think we have a lack of amenities for arts in this community. And I think it would serve this town well to have a small area where there could be outside, little plays or like a small amphitheater. When I say amphitheater, it doesn't have to be 100 people, but you can have one that is, maybe sits 20 people or 15, and it has a little, stage that's always present with gardens around it that allows, like Shakespeare in the Park, and maybe one night or on that side of town to have some acoustic guitars and people sit outside and enjoy the gardens over there. That could be fit into a field. That could be fit in with a sports field amenity, as well as all the other options that were on the table. But I think we don't have anything like that in Groton. We have nowhere where people kind of sit out unless the stage comes and is assembled, but a a little garden space where people could sit, have discussion, especially with all the social distancing going on. It'd be a nice little place to have a poet come and stand up and speak and, you know, enjoy a casual night outside up on the hill for all of the good of Groton. Since the town would own the property, it'd be great where we can have a little events there, art shows and plays and things like that. And it doesn't have to be a large scale. I look at something maybe that, like I said, accommodates 20 or 30 people, kind of just sitting out enjoying a cool evening, listening to music or poetry. So I can support a lot of the plans, but I think if we could somehow add something like that into there with the gardens, it might be able to fit around those trees that are planted or over in any section really, and it could be a small corner. And I think it would be very utilized in the town. But I do think, for the record, and I might have some more questions once it's actually talked about, but is it a possibility to talk about that revised plan that came in at 3:30 today a little bit? Thank you.
So we have Councilors Aubrey, Baumgartner, Melendez, Granatowski, and Heed in the queue.
Can you answer my question? If we can talk about it, I would like just the answer question. Can we talk about the plan that was proposed today at 3:30?
Or two, so I'm assuming that's going to happen. So Councilor Aubrey, Baumgartner, Melendez.
So you once again didn't answer my question. You're assuming.
Councilor Bordelon. Other people wish to speak. I'm assuming they're going to want to talk about the plan.
Please don't talk to me like I'm a child. I hear you clearly. When I'm asking, you're assuming they're going to say it, but you running the meeting, if they don't say it, I'm asking that plan is fully described into the meeting.
Councilor Aubrey, you have.
Whatever. It's not transparent.
Okay. I guess I'm going to complicate things again. I'd like to make a motion that we refer this item to the Economic Development Department and handle it as we have dispositions of the other school properties.
Is there?
I beg your pardon?
Looking for a second before.
Second, Bordelon.
So the motion by Aubrey, and seconded by Bordelon, is to refer the disposition of the Noang School property to the Economic Development Department.
Correct.
So, Councilor Aubrey, since you made the motion, you get to speak to it first.
Yes. I realized when we started, well, actually, it was not this council that started working with Noank on what to do with the property. And at that time, we did not have a process, in fact, working on the disposition of school properties. That was something that when we came in as counselors, we said we were going to make it one of our main priorities. And the process was developed and it's been working very well. So I think that number one, they're prepared with what they have practiced to be able to assist this council immensely on the disposition of this property. The other reason that I want to do it that way is the fact that William Seeley, the people in that area, were just as active as the people in Noank in opposition to the project. Because of the process that was done, it went through much smoother. There was a decision made by the council because we were given good information as to what might be there that would be economically good for the town. I don't want to treat one part of town any different than the other. So I would highly recommend that we give this to the EDC, ask them to go through the process that they're very good at doing, bring it back to us when they have recommendations. And I hope other members can see the merit of doing it this way. Thank you very much.
Hold on 1 second, please.
Sure.
We can have 4 motions on the floor.
Why not? You did. No, you corrected yours.
I still would like the plan, revised plan read into the record. People at home that are watching don't even know what's going on.
Let's take a quick recess.
That sounds great.
And,
Yeah.
We have to vote on that, don't we?
No, we don't. 2
We
minutes.
don't?
2 minutes. Thanks.
All right.
No, we do not have to vote on recess. This is
Perfect.
from the
Thank
Rules
you.
Committee.
Thank you.
2 minutes, so 8:35. It looks like Councilor Aubry, your motion is out of order at this point. It is neither a subsidiary or a secondary motion to any of the other three that are on the floor. So your motion is not appropriate right now. Once we start voting, we can, as they drop off, then if you choose to make a motion, you are most welcome to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we are back, everyone. I hope you had your break because we're not going to break again at this point. We are on to Councilor Baumgartner, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and we're live again. Seems like, yep, we are.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to reflect, I know we just recessed, so I hope we're all good now. I would like to respond to Councilor Franco. To my knowledge, and Councilor Melendez can attest to this, there was no verbiage or wording whatsoever or an insinuation about pickup games as opposed to field sports team play at the field. There was nothing in that motion that made reference to what can or cannot be done on a field. For all intents and purposes, this redesigned plan, which was a plan crafted by Brian Kent at the request of myself as a private citizen, just like he is, he developed a plan in conjunction with the School Gardens Task Force, a long-term conceptual plan for that park. As you recall, the council voted to disband that task force last year. So when that happened, we did not consider the plan at all. We then reconsidered a future development plan for the Noyes School property. We started deliberations on that months ago. We've been talking about this issue more than budgets. We've been talking about this issue more than COVID. We've been talking about this issue more than police accountability issues. On that, I absolutely agree with you, Councilor Franco, right? But we still need to, in my eye, come to an agreement that we can all agree on. I think in many respects, we are all closer aligned on this issue than we realize, right? We have gone back to the drawing board time and time again. I've had several discussions with our mayor, as I have had with several other councilors who are all across, who have differing viewpoints on this. But I have worked very closely with people. In the past, I haven't worked closely with on this issue with, and we have come to the table. We've come to a compromise. We've had several individuals throughout town come before us and offer their ideas. Private citizens offering their ideas, boards and commissions offering their ideas and their plans, whether it's the Groton Housing Authority, whether it was Brian Kent, whether it was Ed Johnson. We've had so many ideas, and we've had a lot of time to consider these ideas. And we're finally, I think, at a point where we can finally provide the public some sort of conceptual plan that is reflective of the will of the council. When I say the will of the council, a consensus of the council. Okay, I, like you, Councilor Franco, recognize that we do need sports fields in our community. I cannot speak to this because I did not participate in the last athletic fields task force, but I know there was a discussion about the property at that athletic schools task force meeting, and whether or not it was appropriate to have a field there that could be utilized by a high school team. It was made clear at that meeting that there was a desire on the part of the town to create a campus-like setting for their field. So in the case of Gloucester, right, when it comes offline, it is no longer used as a school, that would be an ideal centralized location to build an athletic complex, right? So you could have tournament play, and that is something that we welcome in town, that we want to have in town, and it actually could be a revenue generator for Parks and Recreation. That way, the revenue that comes from that can go back and be reinvested back into the properties that they maintain in the department that they the department's assets. So additionally, Councilor Franco, to respond, Groton's not eligible for STEEP grants. We're not a small town. STEEP, the ST stands for small town. We're a medium to larger size town. And so we would have to go through the conventional bonding process, right, that every other major city goes through, such as Bridgeport, Hartford, to get a sports field. In some cases, oftentimes those the fields are awarded for, funds are awarded for fields that are significant, such as high school stadiums, right? So football stadiums, soccer stadiums, fields that can be used by multiple teams, by multiple people, right? So it's probably not the best location to receive any form of state support for. So I, like you, I'm not willing to close the door on the fact that potentially, if we have sports teams, especially youth, kids, if are kids teams that want to use that site for play and practice, I have no problem with that. What I do take bigger issue though is for us to then to redo a plan that would be done for the fourth time after I've reached out to several people and I've solicited input from everyone, and I've tried to include all of the perspectives at the best of my ability for the Knowing School property, to include all of those different perspectives. And at the 11th hour, we can't allow that to be hijacked in the meeting. We should make a good faith effort to work together, to collaborate on a plan, and we've had plenty of time to do that. And I respect everyone's, I respect the fact that people want to do this in an open setting, and that's fine, but we can't come to any sort of agreement or solution if we continue conducting ourselves in this manner. So I respectfully ask that, again, concept plans are not the end all be all. If we adopt this plan, it's not, we're not restricted in terms of, for example, in the conceptual plan that Brian Kent redid, he reduced the Christmas tree grove in half, right?
Would you like Mr. Burt to put that up on the screen so that everybody could look at it?
That'd be great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I am mindful of the amount of time that I'm speaking, and I'm trying to keep it below the 5 minutes, just so that.
Perfect. That's great. This is the new revised plan?
This is the one we all received in our mail.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I don't go above the 5 minutes. But nonetheless, this is the revised plan as the mayor shared. To answer Councilor Bordelon's question, I actually received this final draft, the final third draft from Brian Kent today. I then sent it over to John Burt to then circulate to the rest of the council. So I apologize for receiving it today, and I didn't this was not, I did this on my own time. It wasn't, so that just if we can just dispel any, just to get back to this. So we eliminated the healing garden. We eliminated half of the Christmas tree grove, put in more of the arboretum, and in that, very clearly, can you see that there is space for a sports field, youth lacrosse and soccer. All right, so based on that, there's nothing precluding kids from playing soccer on this, right? Practicing or playing. I think that's something we could talk about in the future, but what we're not advocating for, like we did at a more recent meeting, is to pave a quarter of this property to put in a parking lot for the purposes of accommodating a regulation-sized field. That I'm absolutely not in favor of. I think that's a crazy idea, respectfully. What I don't think is crazy is crazy, Councilor Franco and so many others who are supportive of enhancing our athletic fields, is to offer an opportunity for kids to play sports here. There's nothing on this plan says that that cannot happen. So my question is, what is the whole hubbub about? Can we come to an agreement, recognize that this plan is literally no different than the first motion that was cited tonight, other than eliminating half of the Christmas tree grove in a healing garden? It's the same. We can't talk about this ad nauseum over and over again. Let's come together. Again, I think we are really closer to each other than we realize. Let's come together unanimously, ideally, and get a plan passed so that we can move forward, provide the Knowing community and the town as a whole a great new open space future, vision for open passive recreation in the future. And lastly, what I should add that is not on this plan, that is just a drawing, I absolutely support placing a conservation easement and recreation easement on this property. That way future councils don't have the types of conversations that we've held over and over again. That way we can ensure that the neighborhood and community, that future councils and the town will not try to take away this property that is, again, an open passive recreational space for so many people, that we will not go back and renege on that promise. So I have nothing further to say. Thank you.
Councilor Melendez, you have the floor.
Okay. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. I would like to definitely just reiterate what Councilor Baumgartner said, some of it. I do think that we are a lot closer on this than would seem based on sort of how much we seem like we're disagreeing. With that said, I mean, just look at both proposals. I mean, they're both open spaces. They both have a field on them. I mean, we're disagreeing about the size of the field, and not even, because one doesn't specify the size of the field, the other one, I guess, sort of does. I honestly, at this point, I could support either proposal. They seem very similar to me. So I just hope that everybody here can realize that we're agreeing on basically everything, and just please come to a decision, a compromise. It's what's best for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm next in the queue. I want to thank Councilor Baumgartner for getting Mr. Kent to get this plan to us, so we all have a visual that we can see very easily. And I agree with Councilor Melendez and Councilor Baumgartner in that I think we are closer than we may seem in the disposition of this property. We've all agreed, we've come to consensus that we want it to be green space. This is a compromise plan. How is it a compromise plan? It's a compromise plan because people that wanted something strictly a certain way have said, okay, a minority wants something else. Let's try to meet them in the middle. So, the consensus is we're all kind of trying to move to the middle so that we can reach something that we can all feel good about supporting. And as Councilor Baumgartner was stating, some things have been taken out. A kiosk has been taken out. A healing garden has been taken out. We're not going to expand the Christmas tree farm any further. It's going to stay the way it is. The field is a grass field. That's just a grass field for kids to play on. Elementary school kids can go. They can have practices there. I don't think it should be any kind of regulation sport happening on that property. As far as a more practical sense of this plan is meant to cost taxpayers minimally. And a lot of people have said, well, where's the money going to come from? When I support this plan, I don't see this happening overnight. This is something that's going to take a long time to happen, right? And I had everything on here with the exception of the playground in the field is going to be done by donation or grants. That's my vision for this. So as money comes in to plant trees, as donations are received, we'll plant as many trees as we can. If we get a grant for the rain garden, which Councilor Baumgartner is good at getting rain garden grants, when that grant comes in, we'll put the rain garden in. You know, when there's money in the CIP to put in a new playscape, then we'll replace the old playscape. In the meantime, what we have to do is mow a field. That's it. I am not in favor of regrading that property, of irrigating that property, of doing anything else with it short of mowing that field and making it so that little kids can go and practice on that field. I think that is a nice compromise. We're trying to put everything together so that we can all feel good about voting for this and doing what's best for the town at this point. We have said already we're not going to sell this property. So at that point, now we have to find something we can all kind of rally around. And again, I thank Councilor Baumgartner, Councilor Melendez for kind of coming together on this and trying to move forward with a plan that we can get behind and support, something that will be good for the town as a whole, something that the whole town can use. And again, we just heard from the Conservation Commission tonight. You know, we've got to look at the foresting, the carbon sequestration. And again, this is a compromise. You know, we'll leave area for sports fields, but yeah, we got to work on the long-term picture with climate change and worry about carbon sequestration. So I'm willing to move to the center on this and support this compromise plan. We have Councilor Heed up next.
All right, most of what I would have said has already been said in much more eloquent words than my own. So thank you to those before me. The only thing I'd want to underline is that we have traditionally listened to our staff's advice because they have to manage the work hours, for example, to maintain fields. They have to they understand the whole concept of busing students around, and I think we just need to remember that they're not recommending this space be used for large sports fields. And in fact, I've been told that this property isn't actually even large enough for a regulation field. So I think we need to get away from the regulation field. We need to respectfully listen to our staff while we figure out what we want to do with this property. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, we have councilors that wish to speak again, but I'm going to go back and see if Councilor Parker or Obrey wish to speak at this point before we take second time.
No, thank you. Councilor Parker, no, thank you.
Thank you for responding. Councilor Obrey, did you wish to speak at this point?
Well, I still feel that we're approaching something that there is no plan. You know, it's fine to say, well, we'll raise money, we'll do this, we'll do that. I just think that the whole process has just been a mockery of what we're supposed to do as far as finances for the town. And I also reiterate again, we did not do this for the people, for the project that's going on. Somebody help me, all of a sudden the name went out of my mind. The other school property. Nobody's going to help me?
Really?
Daily?
Yes. We're just, this is so unfair, just so terribly unfair. And that's why I still cannot support this.
So we are back to second time speakers. We have Councilor Bordelon and Baumgartner.
Thank you. I still feel like, what's the rush tonight to push this through? We're just showing the public for the first time the revised plan that I had asked for several times, and we finally have it up on the screen that just came through late today. With no disrespect, I understand the time restraint, but then I also feel there really is no sense of urgency. If there's no cost to the town really to have the property sit the way it is. I'm not saying that I wouldn't support this plan, but I feel a plan that comes through at 3:30 in the afternoon, the day before we're going to try to make a vote on it, which that seems like the intention tonight, is not good practice and good government. A good government would have had this presentation up and ready and discussed prior to, and allow for public comment prior to with this new revised plan before making any decisions. I agree with Councilor Aubry. I do think that this property has not taken the same steps as other towns. Other towns have sat with broken down schools sitting there in disarray for many years. This one, the town way before us paid and knocked down the building at a large cost that's already been put in here. I'm all for open space, but this was already developed space. This already has a footprint for development, use that was already there. Okay, open space to me is space that's, the trees that are already native there that have been there that we tear down. This already has the footprint. It had the lines ran to it. It was utilized in a manner in which that was not necessarily considered open space. After speaking tonight and looking at other things, yeah, I support Councilor Aubry's position. I think it should go back to the town for them to relook at this. And you know what? People probably will have a heart attack, but I think, has anyone thought about low-income housing in this area? It's good for one side of town. It should be good for all. This is a perfect place where low-income housing could be, affordable housing, and people could have gardens. Imagine that. You wouldn't have to take the trees to the people in need. You wouldn't have to bring the vegetables to the people in need. They would have it all on their property. That would be a true mixed-use space to really enrich and enhance the well-being of our community. I think we really should look at this property as a whole. I think if we do no service by last minute trying to push a plan through that gets presented late, and then doing a non-scaled field, that's just another park of sorts that not all sides of town necessarily going to benefit in its full potential. I think putting a regulation field there that's the size of that square that could accommodate field hockey or not rugby, lacrosse or something would be a good use for everybody in the town. And those dimensions, I don't know what the gain or the resistance to put up a field would say, nope, it's not going to be regulation. When we have people crying out for the need for regulation-sized fields in our town, for the lack of them. We have a need for low-income housing. We have a need for things to be on our tax roll. We just purchased more open space in another area. This side of town has a lot of open space, which I appreciate. I just don't understand. I mean, before this, they were okay with a school being there that had school buses and traffic and other things like that. I mean, I really think what Councilor Aubry has stated is true. I think the plan should go back, or we should give this more time and look at this plan here. I mean, looking at the considerations, what's written on here, is this as cut and dry as this plan's going to be? Do we have to go with all the things set here if we agree on this motion tonight? Can anyone answer that from this revised plan as of 3/23 today? Every little item that's on here, if we vote on that, that's the items that are going to be on there? Or do we have a chance then on the second round of the votes to modify some of this stuff? I'm asking a point of clarification.
What is your clarification, madam?
The items on here that are so detailed, from playground to native plant walk, when we vote on the plan, it would be voting on this plan as is.
Yes.
Right. I haven't had a chance to research this entirely. How can I vote on something that I haven't even had it 24 hours? Is that fair to other councilors? Or was this fair to the town? Is it fair to the voters and the constituents across all walks of town? Unless, I mean, maybe other people are more prepared because they were discussing it beforehand and then it got sent out. But the first I had a chance to look at this is at 3:30 today, and I didn't even touch it till 5. So what's the urgency? I'm just confused. Is there some type of monies that we're trying to, make sure we get to help fund this? Or because as the property sits now, it's not really costing us anything. And I don't know how this plan in this capacity is really going to do for the good of Groton. I personally think that good government would actually allow us to have a special meeting and put this plan out and really talk about it. If this is the map and plan you want to go with your non-regulation field, then let's have a meeting and let's hear from the people who put us in the positions that we're in and ask them what they want to see on the different forms of layout. The letters that we received in support of this Noant Gardens, they didn't have this plan in front of them, did they? I'm interested now that we're not allowing people to respond and us to hear from them based on the plan now that you guys have drafted and put forward and sent out. Let it be a great draft as it is, but it's not transparent enough, and it's not giving people time to voice their concerns on that. I don't see how that would be in our best interest to vote on something in this capacity tonight. I personally think that we sound like we need more time to look over this in its entirety to make sure that we're making the right decision. And I don't think tonight is necessarily the right time to do that. And in future, when things become before the council in this kind of magnitude is something that's been on the table for so long, it's really important that one has at least a 24-hour turnaround time to at least send it. I haven't had a chance to send any of this to any of the people that were concerned. Did all the people who wrote us letters, did they see this draft? No, they haven't. Was it posted up prior to the meeting? Nope. So how can we vote on something tonight in good faith that has had this proper due diligence and time? I think we should postpone this tonight. I would like to make a motion to postpone this.
Second.
No, point of order or out of order? We have 3 motions on the floor currently. We have to move those motions first before we can bring forth another motion.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, we have other counselors that wish to speak. Councilor Baumgartner has been.
Is that true? Since you run the meeting, Madam Mayor, is it true that a postpone does not allowed at this time?
So we have 2 members of the Rules Committee sitting here with us, and one of them just chimed in. What is your motion?
I would like to put on the table that we postpone this, not that I'm not for it, but I think it needs fair time to really engage the community in this new plan.
A motion to postpone.
Yeah. Which doesn't eliminate it. It doesn't wash it away. It says, give it a little bit more time.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Parker. I'd be happy for you to chime in as a member of the committee. Thank you.
It's either going to be a postponed indefinitely or postponed to a certain time.
Okay.
If we're going to do that.
Okay, I'd like to postpone it to our next, this is a council meeting where that would give us a full week to.
Date, please.
I'm sorry?
You need a date.
Sure, let me pull up my calendar 1 second. How about August 4th?
August 4th is the council meeting, I believe.
So when is the next appropriate meeting then, Mayor, that this could be taken up?
Motion, so.
You're here for guidance, aren't you?
I'd be happy to guide you, madam.
Sure, thank you.
The next.
You set the agenda, so.
Now is August 11th.
Perfect, so I'd like to postpone this meeting, make a motion to postpone this meeting to August 11th.
You can't postpone the meeting.
Not this meeting, this agenda item, I apologize.
Can you be very specific about it, please, and tell us what exactly it is you're postponing.
I'd like to postpone this, the Noant Gardens property plan to August 11th. With this map being posted on our town page.
Is there a
second?
Moved by Bordelon, seconded by Aubry. I don't believe this is debatable. Councilor Parker? Is this debatable? No, it's not debatable.
No, it's not.
And we have a majority vote, and I will call the roll on this.
Point of order.
Who is that? Councilor
It is. Yeah, it is debatable.
What page, sir?
Yes.
Got me there.
Yes, I'm looking at the Robert's rules right now, so that's why I'm asking.
Motion to postpone indefinitely.
Postpone to she's postponed to a specified time.
She did to time definite.
Okay.
Postpone definitely. Postpone to certain time.
Yeah, suspend to a certain time.
Do you have a page number? Here we go. 170, 64. 64 in the big book. We're getting our gymnastics in here tonight.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, what version are you looking at?
This one.
No, 11th or 10th version.
11th.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is interesting. You can place a limit on time of debate.
Yeah, that has to be done at the beginning of the meeting, though, I believe.
I'm sorry, I just was thinking out loud.
Yes, it does.
14. Let me know if you get to it before me, Councilor Parker. Mr. Burt, if you have it handy, we'd also be happy to take any page numbers from you if you find it. Okay, I'm on 179 of chapter 14, postponed to a certain time, and I just started looking. Oh, it should be avoided.
I apologize.
That's okay.
And you also need, if I'm not mistaken, a 2/3 vote.
I didn't hear you, Councilor Baumgartner.
I also believe you need a 2/3 vote.
Can you give me a page?
I'm honestly looking at Robert's Rules for Dummies website. We can go, if we need to look, we can look.
Right, okay, so what are you seeing when you're looking at that?
I'm going to put it in the chat link.
I'm on 182 of the 11th edition. It is debatable, but debate is limited in that it must not go into the merits of the main question or more than is necessary to enable the assembly to decide whether the main question should be postponed into what time. Requires a majority vote. Okay, so there's our answer. So it's debatable, but you have to confine your discussion to decide whether it should be postponed and to what time. There we go.
And I believe, Madam Mayor, I believe it requires a 2/3 vote.
If contested, I believe.
I'm not seeing that, Councilor Baumgartner. Where did you find that?
Dummies.com.
Councilor Parker, are you seeing the vote necessary on this? I am in disagreement. Well, let's see.
It requires a majority vote or a 2/3 vote if making a special order.
And where did you find that?
Same place Andre did.
Robert's Rules for Dummies?
Yep.
I have a majority vote.
That's what it says majority, and then it says in parentheses, unless it's a special order. I don't even know what that means, but.
Councilor Parker, do you have anything that is in opposition to that? And Mr. Burt, I will ask you, do you have anything from your years of experience in parliamentary matters?
Nothing's just off the top of my head. I was sure it was majority and debatable, but I don't have my book with me, unfortunately.
Okay. So I have in here, and unless somebody else comes up with something else, so it is debatable. So then we had people in the queue waiting to talk. about the main motion. But now that there's been a motion made to postpone to a definite time, now those people need to wait, and we need to discuss the motion to postpone first and have a vote on that. And then we can go back to the main motion if we choose not to postpone this. All right, so is everybody clear where we are with everything? Any questions about process at this point, guys? Okay, so is there any discussion on the motion to postpone? And I'm seeing, hold on a minute. Just a minute, please. All right, so Councilor Baumgartner's hand was up from before. So Councilor Franco was waving, so we're discussing this motion now. So Councilor Franco, you can speak to the current motion, please.
I don't think there's a need to postpone. I would rather myself go forward and make a decision tonight. I think we have a lot to discuss still on the actual topic at hand. And I would just like us to quickly take a vote and see how everybody feels. Thanks.
Councilor Bordelon, I'm not sure if your hand was up from before or if you're wishing to speak to your current motion. So could you please clarify that?
Yeah, my hand was up.
For this motion?
Correct. Once again, I'm just restating the fact that I can support something, but I can't do it last minute. And I think it's only fair to the voters. By postponing it is not going to hurt anything. It gives us time to be as transparent as possible and allow for people to review the situation that has been presented in the new plan. And maybe there's some other ideas or suggestions to go along with this. And if we're voting on this and it's exactly the way that it is, as it's written here, it doesn't really give anybody a chance to maybe spruce up or change any of the other amenities around here. That's pretty cut and dry. So I just would like to postpone to kind of really collaborate and look at the whole plan.
Thank you, Councilor Baumgartner. I see your hand, and again, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Councilor Bordelon. Is that from the other motion, or is that from this motion to postpone?
It can be for the motion to postpone, but I would prefer not to. I don't support. I think we have plenty to talk about tonight, so I will not support the motion.
I also agree that we should not postpone at this time. Anyone else on the motion to postpone? Okay, so I'm going to call roll on this one so that we're sure we have everybody correct. So I need you to say yes or no on the motion to postpone until August 11th. Councilor Baumgartner. Yes or no, please?
No. Oh.
Councilor Parker, yes or no, please?
No.
Councilor Franco?
No.
Councilor Heed?
No.
Councilor Aubry?
Yes.
Councilor Bordelon?
Yes.
Councilor Melendez?
No.
And I am a no also. That motion fails. 2 in favor, Aubry and Bordelon. Those opposed, Baumgartner, Parker, Franco, Heed, Melendez, and Granatowski. So the motion to postpone has failed. We are back to the main item on the floor, which is Councilor Franco's third item on the floor. I've got it on 2 separate pieces of paper. So we have one from the prior week, the motion from Melendez and Baumgartner, and the final motion on the floor is the Franco Bordelon motion on regulation fields. And Councilor Baumgartner, you had your hand up before the motion to postpone was made, so I will take it back to you, sir. Councilor Baumgartner, are you there?
Yes, am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are, sir.
All right, thank you. Again, this new plan that we're deliberating on today is a minus plan. It reduces and eliminates things that were on the previous plan. Case in point, healing garden. What was previously a healing garden is now an arboretum, right? So we have plenty of, we've had plenty of opportunity to deliberate on this plan. So nothing has changed. So I would just remind people that if you have any questions, this is the time to talk about it. We're talking about, like, this is the meeting where we're talking about knowing school property to our community. We've been talking about this over and over again. I don't know what more, especially in times of when we're supposed to be socially distancing from one another and can't have in-person meetings. What more do we need to do to disclose to the public and share with the public what plans we support? We're actually going through the motions of putting together new conceptual plans based off of every new meeting we have. That is, I think, a very dangerous precedent to set, considering that we're asking, and at least, or I shouldn't say we, I'm asking a private citizen to in their own time, to be assisting us and so we can visualize what the park could look like. So again, I can't stress enough, we've talked about this ad nauseum. We've had plenty of opportunities, both publicly and privately, to talk about our concerns for this project. We know we can agree to disagree on the scale in size and scope of the athletic fields there. But I think in terms of, sprucing up, we already removed the healing garden. So if you wanted sprucing up, then you probably should have called for, supporting that beautiful healing garden. Last meeting, seemed like it was the consensus of the council. It probably wasn't the best use of funds, whether it's grant funds or even, definitely not tax funds, but even grant funds. Maybe that can go towards, developing our arboretum, installing a couple more rain gardens, or, so I'll leave it at that. But again, nothing new, only reductions.
Thank you for clarifying. And I see Councilor Franco has her hand up.
Thank you. So I want to clarify a few things that I've heard so far. One is that that at the task force, the sports field task force, that they made recommendations. Actually, the last two meetings, they did not have a quorum. And there were two people that had spoken, and one was a representative from Kent Frost, and one was Jerry, who is who works for Parks and Rec. They didn't have a quorum. So actually the meeting should not have been going on, and there was no debate, there was no vote. So the Sports Field Task Force has not made any type of recommendation whatsoever. When I've been told that we have to watch how we bus our kids, well, I will let you know, baseball from Fitch gets bused to Cutler Middle School to play baseball. Kids from Fitch get bused to Paquonic Plains to play on the rectangle fields there all the time. Kids from Fitch to be bused to the Knowing School property would not be that outlandish. It would be very similar to how they get bused to Cutler Middle School. So these are not outlandish claims I'm making and requests to have this. What I don't understand is there was the second motion for so the first motion right now is the Kent Frost old picture. This one is the Kent Frost new picture. It's a picture. The motion was made without any kind of notice of what it actually entails. It doesn't say this could be updated with Parks and Rec with different recommendations, or this could be taken away due to any kind of recommendation, or this sports field is not a regulation size sports field, or it is a pickup sports field, like pickup games. I just heard the mayor state that she does not want organized sports on there. She wants practices on there. So if we're going to have a field for practice, and we're going to have the town go out and line it and do all these other things for teams to go out there and practice, what's the difference of having an organized sports team play on it? I mean, you're still investing the money to have the town maintain it the same you would as the sports field. So if we are not eligible for the STEEP grant. I just Googled sports and recreation grants. There are 621 of them out there. So it was a very quick, easy, like Google search. There are plenty of ways to get support to put a regulation size sports field. The real difference really between this picture, what I'm asking for is a regulation size sports field that we could determine what kind later after we receive recommendations, and the amenities in the park could be decided later, because what you're going to be voting on this rendering is the footprint. That will be exactly what the park will be, period. And when the Christmas trees are cut down, I don't know if there's going to be new trees planted or how we're going to deal with that, because it's a picture. That's the motion on the floor, is a picture. It says, you know, some of these things on here. I mean, I personally, like I've heard other people, would like a walking path to go around the whole thing. I think that's a wonderful idea, but it's not on here. So if it's not on here, it's not going to happen. So you're going to be passing something, and although Councilor Baumgartner states he's not against organized sports being there, it's not in the motion. So my motion that I made on June 23rd said regulation size sports fields. And that's what I'm sticking to. And if we all read the emails that came through, there were an enormous amount of emails that came through wanting a regulation size sports field up there. And when people say it's not going to fit, I find that hard to believe. It is a property that is 6 acres in size. A football field is 6 acres in size. A full-size baseball field, a full size, like that men in high school play on, is 3 acres. A soccer field is 1.73 acres. I think a softball field is 2.5 acres. So when they say it won't fit, I'm not buying it. It might not be set up the way it is right here, but something can fit there. I mean, 1.73 for a soccer field, which is probably similar, obviously, to a lacrosse field or a field hockey field, would definitely fit on 6 acres. So I understand we've been talking about this for a long time. I agree. And I understand where you're coming from, Councilor Baumgartner. But I made this recommendation, this motion, on June 30th. And when after those 3 motions were put out, we received input and support. And the support that I've received and my motion on the floor was to put in a regulation size sports field along with park amenities. So like you said, they are very similar, but as Councilor Bordelon said, there may be other things that would fit better in here, or maybe have different ideas for what should be in here. I personally would have liked the walking trail around the whole thing. I think Councilor Bordelon's idea of having maybe his little stage up there for a little music in the park, I think that would be a wonderful idea. So if you're sitting here saying we're going to have this picture and that footprint and that's it then. That's what you're voting on. So I'm trying to say, let Parks and Rec decide. Let them look at this. Let them, they're the people that are the professionals at parks, not us. And when it comes to what type of field, it should be up to maybe recommendations coming from people that know exactly what's needed in our town. Because I'm hearing things from some counselors who are trying to say what they think about sports fields in our community. And I know a lot more. And they're trying to make a case, and there's a lot more that you just don't know. There's a lot of field shortage in our town. So I thank you for your time.
All right, I had sent a message to Mr. Burt in the chat asking him to put up the original plan, so I'm going to just jump in here. Mr. Burt has just displayed the original plan that we've had for I don't know how long, and you can see the difference here is that some of the more intense features like the kiosk, the healing garden, those were taken out, and the additional planting of Christmas trees was not included. There is a path that goes through. In the new version, there are multiple paths along the left. Let's see if that would, I don't know, the lower left corner, and again on the right corner, there's a path there as well. So there are walking paths on this, and again, this is the old one, and as Councilor Baumgartner said, we are not adding anything, we're taking things out, if anything. So at this point, everyone has had one chance to speak. Some have spoken more than once. I see Councilor Bordelon has her hand up again. Councilor Bordelon, do you wish to speak again on this matter?
Yes. I just, once again, we had to ask tonight to get these documents up here, and it wasn't going to be presented in that way. It was something that looks like as if it was going to be put through. And I feel like for full purposes, you can say there's a small modification, but any modification is change. Anytime you alter any document, if I alter your medical record and make your blood pressure higher, that's a change, even if it's a point, okay? So you can cut trees in half and say you cut the Christmas trees. The original thing that was presented changed, therefore it is a change, and we should give it more time. That's all I'm asking. I would like to now break apart the idea of putting in what in that right-hand corner over there, a small amphitheater. I mean, Councilor Baumgartner, since you're big on this, would you consider a small amphitheater in that plan?
Absolutely. I don't see why, but I would have hoped if that was a desire when we've been talking about this plan now for a good several weeks, maybe even more than a month.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't see why that wouldn't be feasible. I mean,
with all due respect, you guys gave me less than 24 hours and told me you're cutting the trees down and the Christmas trees and changing the whole format. So me looking at this and seeing which way the vote may go, I'm now throwing myself out there back on the table and saying, you want something and so don't I. So meet me somewhere. So it is a change to the plan that was last minute. So if I come up with something last minute or not, what's the difference? How about a small amphitheater?
Councilor Bordelon, you guys is literally me emailing.
Councilor Bordelon has the floor, and until she cedes, I ask you to wait, please.
It seems to me that maybe I'm wrong, and I'll just speak frankly because that's why people elected me, because I speak frankly. The mayor took down her forest that she was very passionate about to support this. So it seems like a lot of people won through his name in. There was a collaboration that was said tonight. So that's 3 people, okay? Conrad's for it as well, okay? That's 4. So when I say you guys, I'm saying there's more than just you, meaning that you guys had a plan, and that's fine. But it was presented at 3:23 today. And so I'm just asking that consider looking at, you can say it's a slight change, and I was asking to postpone this to a later date so that I could support this and really talk with you and be part of that plan that was recently edited, to maybe come up with some other ideas so that I could fully support it. I still think a regulation fee is my first vote, but after that, I'm gonna have a chance to vote again. And if I have to vote on this, I think we should be part of the full deliberation of what's gonna be in there. And I think that there's plenty of room there for a small amphitheater. So I'm asking for a compromise. Is there a chance that we can put in, and written in the record, that we could put in a small amphitheater, which is like a little rocky area that's organically made, and it's not like a stadium, just sits about 15 people, where someone can get up and do a speech or sing or do something with the arts. We got your garden, give me the arts now. That's what I'm asking for. So you want me to support this last minute, and so I'm throwing out an idea. So is there a chance that we could put an amphitheater in? If you go back to the original drawing, can you go back to the original drawing of the new proposed modified, a limited version that cuts down the trees?
We're not cutting down any trees. I just need to clarify that because you've said that twice.
Well, you're decreasing the amount of trees in the original plan, correct? Is that correct?
I will let you finish, then I'll speak. I'll wait my turn.
My understanding, if you go back to the drawing, we're decreasing the amount of Christmas trees. Okay, so I'm just saying maybe over in the right corner, considering an amphitheater. So can we make a modification to put in an accommodation for that? It's just made of stone and it would serve the whole community.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Baumgartner, Councilor Bordelon still has the floor.
If it's pertaining to this issue and he's willing, I would yield the floor to him.
Councilor Baumgartner, Councilor Bordelon has yielded the floor to you. So she's done, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To be
I didn't
honest,
say she was done, thank you. With all respect, you don't have to say it like that. That was very rude.
Floor,
Thank you.
now his floor.
Please speak with me respect, thank you.
I have no problem with an amphitheater.
Please don't mute me without, I can still unmute myself, thank you. Once again, treat me with respect.
Look, I have no problem with an amphitheater. It might actually be a nice little place for the parents to watch the kids practice. Since, you know, but I don't think we need to really read like if what Councilor Bordelon is suggesting, I don't think it's hurtful. If including that will maybe help us get to even, you know, closer to unanimous support for something, then you know what, I support that. But I would also want to ensure that taxpayers aren't paying for the amphitheater, that if there are folks who want to privately, raise funds for an amphitheater for those purposes, I have no problem with that. If they want to donate to the Groton Parks Foundation, so to support, the Arboretum or, an amphitheater or what have you, that's fine with me. So I have no problem with that. I also, because again, Brian has been so kind and helpful. I don't see why, if there was something that changed tonight, we could say, hey, by the way, the council made this small change. Instead of a healing garden, we put more trees there and it's an arboretum. Very benign change. But you know what? He made that change, and I'm sure he would be willing to make another change again based upon whatever the council agrees to in its. So I understand the motion is this plan, but if from these deliberations and discussions that we should be having, right, in a very civil and calm manner, if we realize that maybe there are a couple of things that should be retooled, that's why we're meeting. That's why we're talking about it. So I have no problem with that. I yield the floor.
How do we then make that motion to make that happen?
Point of clarification.
At this point, yes, Councilor Melendez, what is your point of clarification, sir?
I think this is not the plan that's currently on the floor. It's
that's correct. That's correct.
This is the old plan, and we have 3 motions on the floor already. We just went through this exercise earlier. We cannot have any more as they are not permitted as per Robert's rules. So at this point, everything is moot. Everything else that's being considered is moot because we cannot change any of the motions that are on the floor. So where we stand right now is we will first be voting on the amendment or the motion for regulation fields. If that passes, that's where we go. If that fails, we then go to the second motion on the floor, which is the motion for the revised Kent Frost plan. If that fails, then we are back to the original motion on the floor, which is the plan you're looking at right now. Just so everyone is clear where we are with it. We can't have any more motions on the floor at this point, which we discussed actually now it's been about an hour since we've had that discussion.
Clarification?
Excuse me? Councilor
Point of clarification. Just want to make sure I understand. So if a motion fails, then I can ask my request to modify the plan that was the edited plan that was proposed tonight.
If a motion fails, then you can have another motion on the floor, but you would need to get a second on that motion. So
Okay.
at this point, I just want to make sure everyone knows where we are with things. And I've been waiting patiently. And I'm going to speak at this time. And then we have Councilor Franco and Melendez in the queue. There's not a lot of difference between this plan you're looking at and the compromise plan. And I'm going to say the word compromise again. The majority on this council has compromised to try to accommodate the minority on this council. I think we need to remember that we are 9 councilors, but we are trying to do the town's business and we're trying to move forward. with something that's good for the whole town. And, you know, the intention here is not for, you know, you win, I lose, you lose, whatever. The intention is to come up with something that's going to benefit the people of Groton, okay? And the majority seems, I don't know until we vote, but the majority seems to be in favor of a compromise plan to get something done that includes what many councilors would like to see happen on this piece of property, okay? Couple of things. There is a walking path. There are multiple walking paths. No one's cutting trees down. And to say that I, of all people, would be in favor of cutting down trees, I'm a little offended by that. We're simply not planting Christmas trees there. We're going to be planting more native species in this place rather than just Christmas trees in a little row. We are at 9:45, councilors. We have this item on the agenda. We have an excess property redevelopment executive session that we need to go into. Everybody has spoken at least once. Most of us have spoken multiple times on this. I would ask you to please be respectful of each other's time and to also be respectful of town staff's time, who have been very patient waiting for us to get through this. Keep in mind where we are and where your fellow councilors are. I think we all know where each other stand on this. So please be respectful of that when the floor is yours. And with that, we have Councilor Franco Melendez in the queue.
Now my question is, a point of clarification from Councilor Melendez, who put the motion on the floor for the revised Kent Frost. As I had reviewed the picture, it shows a field on there. It does not state whether it's a field for pickup games or if it's a field for organized sports of any sort. How am I supposed to know what that is?
Well, first we have to vote on. I think your motion is first. Then, if that one fails,
are you responding to Councilor Franco, or are you taking your turn now?
No, I'm responding to her.
Councilor
I just want to say that.
Melendez.
Yes, in the plan, it's. I don't think the field is specified what the field is. If someone can, if I'm mistaken, then someone can correct me. But in the plan, it's just there's a space there for a field. So
because the motion you put on the floor is just a photo. It's a picture of a rendering of what should go there. That will be the footprint of exactly what goes there. That's what we're voting on tonight. That was your motion. The motion for the first motion is Councilor Baumgartner put on the floor. That is for this other picture, the original picture, where there's a larger Christmas tree grove. It does not stipulate in the motion that I heard any type of difference in what, it just showed a picture of a field, but it doesn't say what the usage is for. So I am hearing that I should be cognizant of how my councilors feel and how they're going to vote. I am cognizant. I did talk to somebody on the phone, quite a few people, to say, and they said they would support regulation size fields on this property. So my question is, how can I know as a councilor voting on something, it's just a picture and nobody explained it at all? Because the motion was made of a picture, that's exactly what will be there. My motion is on the floor to basically do everything there, but let Parks and Rec decide, and to put a regulation size sports field on there. Because as we just heard, Councilor Bordenland had a different idea. How do we know other Parks and Rec people wouldn't have even greater ideas that we hadn't even thought of yet? Because they know a lot more about this stuff than we did. Why don't we allow them to choose? That's what I don't understand. Or let them make the recommendation. Let them come back and say, hey, you know what? This is something we definitely need in our town. And all, because you know what? We took a survey, spent a bunch of town money that the council approved to find out what we needed in our community. Why don't we listen to these people? We gave them money to go find out these questions. And now we're saying, well, we're just going to make our own decisions. We don't need to listen to the study that, like, anything like that. We're just going to build this because these are the things that 9 people wanted. I don't get this. So I would ask my fellow councilors to please support me in putting a regulation-sized sports field up there with park amenities, and all these things would be decided exactly what later. And that would benefit our town. Not just us choosing what our own personal wants and needs are. And even a sports field, although I'm passionate about it, it's not just simply my wants and needs. This is an enormous amount of emails came in supporting it since June 23rd, since the motion's been on the floor. And you have all seen these. I am not alone asking for this. It was the majority of emails. So I ask you to support my motion. Thank you.
Councilor Melendez, you have the floor.
Okay. I think, okay, if I'm not mistaken, it's a concept master plan. I think it's just sort of, I don't think everything is set in stone necessarily. I think that's like, if there's this certain amount of Christmas trees, that's the exact amount of Christmas trees that's going to be there, and we can't do anything else. I think that's just the direction we're going to go in. That's just how I understand concept plans. But I do agree personally, this is just me personally, that the plans are so close. What you are proposing and what Councilor Baumgartner is proposing are so close. I can personally support them both. I do have a question for Councilor Franco, though, because you want the recommendation from the task force in Parks and Rec. So if they come back with the recommendation that they don't want a full-size regulation field, they think it is best as a square field or a youth practice pickup game field, would your plan specifically says regulation field? It doesn't say what at the recommendation of these two bodies, because if it is at the recommendation, then I could support your plan, because I think those are the people who we've tasked to find out what's best.
Right. Let me just clarify. My motion states it would be the recommendation from the sports task force, Parks and Rec, and the school system. Those people would give us a recommendation of what type of field they think should go there.
Okay, so if it's not necessarily a regulation field, then it's just not a regulation field. Is that what you're saying?
What kind of, I don't
know. There's a lot of debate going back and forth, and in order to know who should be yielding and everything, I need to clarify. Do you want to yield the floor to Councilor Franco?
Yeah, I just want to ask Councilor Franco, and then she can have the floor. If your plan has the recommendations, ask for the recommendations from the task force, Parks and Rec, and the Board of Ed. If they recommend not having a regulation size field, if they recommend having a youth field, would your plan then implement the youth field?
A youth field, let's just say a Little League field, which is a youth field, that is still a regulation size. Because Little League has regulation size fields. It doesn't mean full size. Youth or full size is the difference you're talking about. A regulation size field means it's ready for playing on. Compared to a regulation, if you say, for example, I want a tennis court, they're regulation size tennis courts. They're a certain size, they're a dimension that is for games. I mean, you might be able to say, I'm going to play tennis on an old basketball court, but that's not regulation size. You can't play a game on there. That's just for fun. So it's not about full size or youth field. I don't care. I'm just saying a regulation size field where organized sports can be played on it. That's what I'm asking for. Not a full size or a youth size. I'm asking for the recommendation on just what kind.
Right, we have Councilor Heed who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to point out a couple things. As mentioned, the town staff has stated that they do not want a regulation field over at that location, and that I have word that Mark Berry said that it's too small for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I can't verify that. But we could ask for a clarification. But I do also want to point out that the task force has counselors sitting on it. Not all counselors, but there are counselors who sit and participate in those discussions. So I just want to caution everyone that we turn it over to the task force, and it's going to be certain counselors who participate in that recommendation.
Okay, it is 9:56. Everybody has spoken multiple times. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak before we vote on? We have 3 motions to get through. Okay, we have 3 motions to get through, guys. And I'm seeing one hand. It is Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. So it would seem to me, why would we want to? We have the map here. We have an idea where a field can go that could be a pickup field or a sport regulation field. Why do we have to define exactly tonight what every little item is going to be in? And I agree with Councilor Franco. There's no written plan. There's a visual plan, but it would make sense to have more detail and written idea with this plan to really deliberate exactly how that would all be, because then you can strike individual items and add items as needed. So wouldn't it make sense to, put a plan up there that doesn't limit us to what we're going to put around without anything written out in detail? There's no like sidebar to this that discuss, any of it. You guys had, so, I mean, is there any more thoughts on that, or what's, I just don't think it's a very complete plan. It's, would make more sense to say, fine, this is the possible arrangement. I could support that, but not, with no write-up and on the side to really say what's really going to go there. And it just leaves it very open-ended, not open-ended enough to really kind of talk about it. Really looking at all walks of all sides of town and really making sure this plan fits the needs of everybody. I think it should have been a more clear tapestry that we could fill in. So what's the urgency again to, throw this item up there with, set items that, can now not be altered if we vote on these? And I support what Councilor Franco is saying. A regulation field, the field hockey girls could benefit for having a field hockey field that's regulation, that's probably going to be about the size of a pickup field. It's, the ball pretty much stays on the ground. It's not intimidating. And it would be helpful to the high school to have that accessibility. Right now, they do not have a proper field, and sometimes they can't even compete against other schools because our field does not exist. So I think when we look at what we're going to do in any side of town, we need to be thinking of the whole town. And when we build any type of infrastructure or park or anything, we should be looking at what the town needs, and really thinking of it as a whole entire picture. So I still support a regulation field, making sure that the children in our town have open space to play. Once again, where this has already been a developed location that's already been flattened, and we're just trying to build it back up. So we're not eliminating creating any new open space. We're revitalizing a structure that was already flattened and trying to bring it back to life. So I just encourage that we look at a way to kind of mend some of this stuff in here and still support a regulation field. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further hands. We will vote on the third.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Parker.
it's 10 o'clock. Should we take a vote to continue the meeting?
It is 10 o'clock. Now, since I started talking and you interrupted me, we're going to do this vote. I'm sorry. We'll do this vote that I just called, and then we will vote to proceed if necessary. So the third motion on the floor is the one we will be voting first. That is the Franco Bordelon motion for the regulation field. I think we all know what it is, as determined by the after consulting Athletic Fields Task Force, Parks and Rec, Board of Ed, with remaining space, with various amenities as recommended by Parks and Rec. So yes, I need you to say yes or no. So all those in favor of the third motion, please say, roll call. Councilor Baumgartner, yes or no on the third motion?
No.
Councilor Parker?
No.
Councilor Franco?
Yes.
Councilor Heed?
No.
Councilor Aubry?
No.
Councilor Bordelon?
Yes.
Councilor Melendez?
Yes.
And Granatowski is a no. We have 3 in favor, 5 opposed. Any abstentions? No abstentions. That motion fails. We're on to the second motion, which is the updated Kent Frost Plan. Again, I need you to say yes or no to the.
Point of clarification.
I have called a vote, please.
But we are allowed to throw another thing on a motion once one is striked. Is that correct, Madam Mayor?
Vote. And
it doesn't matter what, we are allowed to throw another motion on the floor once one is Councilor Aubry was waiting for one to fall off to be able to put another motion on the floor. Is that my understanding?
I called the vote, Councilor Bordelon.
But she has the right to put him.
You're not moving fast by any stretch of.
It doesn't matter how long this takes. Then you set the agenda.
Councilor Bordelon.
Do not send items at 3:23 and then tell me to hurry up.
Order.
I don't care.
Yes.
No, it should take as long as it should take. Point of order, as long as it should take. Don't rush the process. Slow it down.
And Aubry have both called point of orders. Councilor Parker.
I'll call point of order too. Point of order, slow it down.
Councilor Parker, you have the floor.
I did try to.
Councilor Parker, you have a point of order.
I am trying to speak.
Okay.
Councilor Bordelon, with regards to your motion on Councilor Aubry speaking, she already called the motion. She did the same thing when I asked to take a vote on the timing of 10 o'clock. Because she had already put the motion on the floor, we have to proceed. So I'm still waiting to proceed about 10 o'clock because it's now 10:03. And according to our own rules, that we're supposed to take a vote on the time to continue a meeting. So I'm just going to wait patiently and figure this out. Thank you.
Councilor Aubry, what was your point of order, ma'am?
Just to stop the hurrah that was going on. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are in the middle of a vote on the second motion, which is the revised Kent Frost Plan. I will call roll on this one also. Councilor Baumgartner.
Yes.
Councilor Parker.
Yes to the concept.
Councilor Franco. Councilor Franco.
No to a picture, because it's not a concept.
Councilor Heed.
Yes.
Councilor Aubry.
No.
Councilor Bordelon.
No.
Councilor Melendez.
Yes.
And Granatowski is a yes also. We have any abstentions? We have 1, 2, 3, 5 in favor, 3 opposed, 0 abstentions. That motion passes 5-3-0. Councilor Parker, to you, your point of order. We are at 10:04. We have one item remaining on the agenda. It is 2020-500 update on excess property redevelopment. to Mystic Education Center short-term tax agreement. This is the executive session that the manager has asked us to hold this evening. I need a consensus before we can continue with this item. Is there any objection to continuing with this item?
I object.
I object.
We are 8 counselors. We have 2 objections. So the majority carries. So then I will make a motion.
You didn't even take account.
Only 2 people said no. Does anybody else object to this besides
that you are moving way too fast?
It's all intentional. This is his purpose. There's no way to put a motion on the floor. She ran the can't vote. It's absolute garbage.
Order, Councilor Bordelon.
Second motion.
Garbage.
Moving and not allowing counselors to speak when necessary.
Motion to recess.
Second.
Out of here.
There's been a motion to recess. You can't just go out. We have to have a vote.
Oh, we do. That's right.
No, we do not. No.
Vote to recess, rather. That's by Bordelon. Seconded by Franco.
Now we need a vote. We didn't need a vote when you recessed. Now we need a vote. I'm confused.
We're not recessing.
Changed.
Councilor Bordelon.
Point of order, keep your manners, please. We need to speak to each other with respect.
I've been saying that from day one, Conrad. Thank you.
Excuse me. We're in the middle of a motion to adjourn. There is no discussion. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Bordelon, anyone else?
Aye.
Franco. All those opposed to adjourning, please say aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Councilor Baumgartner and Melendez, are you opposed or in favor?
Madam Mayor, I said opposed. I had myself
Opposed, Melendez.
Gardner, Melendez. Councilor Aubry, are you in favor of adjourning or opposed?
Because of the mood of the council, I'm in favor of adjourning, as much as that's important to me.
So we have Baumgartner. Who else do we need? We need Parker. Are you opposed or in favor of adjourning, Councilor Parker?
Opposed.
Heed, we have Aubry, we have Bordelon, we have Melendez, we have, I'm missing a vote. Baumgartner, Melendez, Granatowski, Parker are opposed. Bordelon, Franco, Aubry, who am I missing?
Yourself?
Oh, I am opposed to adjourning. Thank you, Councilor Aubry. So the motion to adjourn fails. So I will do it one more time for this. So I'm going to call a quick roll here. Whether we're going to go into executive session or whether we're going to take this item up. Councilor Baumgartner, do you wish to take up the item on the tax?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Baumgartner. Parker.
Yes.
Franco.
No.
Heed.
Yes.
Aubry.
Oh.
Bordelon.
No.
Melendez.
Yes.
Granatowski. Yes. Okay, so we have consensus to move on with this last item, and that is 2020-500 update on excess property redevelopment for Mystic Education Center. And I hereby move that the members of the Town Council Committee of the Whole, Town Manager John Burt and Planning Director John Reiner, Economic Development Manager Paige Bronk, and Attorney Eric Callahan go into executive session pursuant to General Statute Sections 1206D for the discussion of the selection of a site or the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate of a state or subdivision of the state concerning purchase and development of the Mystic Education Center. I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Granatowski, seconded by Aubry. It is now 10:09, and is there any other business to come after executive session, or is Groton Municipal Television free to go?
I have some other business.
So would you like Groton Municipal Television to stay so that you can have your other business?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, so we are in executive session. Mr. Burt, I'll let you and Mr. Greeley take care of whatever you need to do. So I ask all the counselors to sit tight until we get the go-ahead from Mr. Burt and Mr. Greeley, please. Thank you. We came out at 10:19. We got the cameras rolling again, so it is 10:21. And we are on to item 6, review of agenda items. Mr. Burt, do you have anything for us that you wish us to review at this point, or council?
No, I do not.
So then we are on to other business. Councilor Franco and Councilor Bordelon have their hands up.
So I would like to once again ask that the DEI committee come to our council meeting and explain what they're about. I've asked for this numerous times. We've been dealing with the civil rights movement since March. It's now, our next meeting is August, and we have not had them come and explain what they are, what they do, and I would like a full report on like what's going on with them. Also, I'd like to have some COVID related issues come to our council related to economic development and human services. I know that I've had some questions answered and they've been posted on the town website, but I don't think that's enough. I think our council should be discussing these very important issues that have been put off for probably the last 3 months. So in all honesty, we could all delve into and deal with Knowing Gardens, because that was the priority of our council for the last 2 months. Yeah. And I would really like to see some things that are actually going on in the world right now that are actually affecting things in our community and the people in our community and the businesses in our community that are important right this minute. Because in all reality, I think Knowing Gardens could have waited. So could we have an in-depth discussion with economic development to find out, is there anything else our council can do? Can we try and start thinking outside the box, like as was done with outdoor dining? Maybe there are other things that could help our community. So this is probably like my 6th time asking for this. And I know I have counselors have supported me on bringing these initiatives to our council, but it has never ended up on our agenda. So, but I see other things on our agenda that I don't even know how they got there. So, thank you.
We have Councilors Bordelon and Heed, and then I have business as well.
Thank you. So I too feel that sometimes the agenda, at this point, I feel like we're told to, I've been told by the town manager, by the mayor, and other people have been told, we need to hurry up on to other items at several meetings. If you guys set the meeting and the agenda, then we're going to take we should have the full amount of time to discuss without the pressure of people telling one to hurry up. If that's the case, then split the agenda up. I'm tired of coming to meetings where I feel that I have to shut up or slow down or Councilor Bordelon again. If I hear that one more time, or right before I'm about to speak, I'm told, well, just so the council's made aware that, we have a lot of other agenda items coming up. That's fine. I saw the agenda. But I have a right to bring up whatever I feel is important to that issue, and I shouldn't be tried to be muted or rushed. That's not good government. It's not appropriate, and it's not respectful to everybody else. That's my first thing. And second, when a new item that's going to come on that we're going to vote on that night, in order for it to be validated, maybe we should send something to the rules, and I will send it to the rules. It should be in our email or in our possession the prior day by 3 something, especially a big item like this, like Knowing Gardens or something else. For good government and transparency, you cannot give things last minute. Some people on the council may be out of work or working from home or have the extra time right now. I'm still working, something coming through, and you can say it was a small modification or not, but items coming through at 3:30 to vote on in 2 hours or 3 hours after that, it's not good. I had 3 texts tonight, and Bev Washington said I could say her name, from her saying, what is the plan? Why did they know about the plan? So I just ask that we slow things down a little bit
And if you want to run the meeting and you want to engage, and then change your agenda in a way that allows for full deliberation of the items, not to be rushed. That needs to stop. And I'm tired of feeling treated in a way. I'm very vocal about how I feel, but from day one when I got on this council, the feeling has been ever one way with certain individuals. And I'm here to stay until at least I'm not reelected or reelected again. And I demand and ask the respect to me. If you want the respect, you have to give the respect. And I'm tired of being told, well, you already talked about this one too much. And Councilor Bordelon, and I asked for support on, and I asked for a simple date. And she's like, well, if you're going to call the motion, you should know the date. Well, we elected you to run the meeting. You can't give out a date now? And then tonight, the way that the meeting was so rushed, you ran a great meeting tonight. You rushed it through so that you didn't allow anybody else to put another motion on the floor purposely. I just don't agree with it. I can't support it. I'll speak up about it every time. I think there was a way that we could have collaborated, and it sounds like more people had their hands in what the new change was going to be before it got sent at 3:30 tonight. So to say that we had the paperwork ahead of time, yes, we had the original one, but we didn't have the other paper until 3:30. So I just ask that we slow it down a little bit and allow for people to fully discuss without penalty or criticism. Thank you.
Councilor Heed.
You're laughing and smiling. I love it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. John Burt, in John Burt's report, he put out that the lawyer would be updating the recommendation for the Civilian Review Board. And I know the Senate votes on that this week. So I just wanted to know, I wanted to make sure that that was going to happen so that when we have the Public Safety Committee, we've got something to start with. Thank you.
It is being worked on currently. Of course, if something changes in the language, then they'll have to adjust. But yes, they're working on it currently.
And that leads me to my other business, which is the first referral to the Public Safety Committee. And I disagree that we have not been doing anything. We've been a very busy council and a very productive council. And I thank you all for your work on that. The first referral to the Public Safety Committee is review of police policies and establishment of a police civilian review board. So Councilor Baumgartner, that is now in your capable hands. And we look forward to hearing back from you on that item. Thank you so much. And we have Councilor Franco wishes to speak again. Is any councilor who hasn't spoken yet wish to speak first?
So you're not going to say who else is on that safety review board?
I've already done that, but it is Councilor Baumgartner, Councilor Bordelon, and Councilor Heed. Councilor Franco, you have the floor. Since no one else wishes to speak, you can speak for the second time now. Thank you.
I'd like to ask the town manager, so the Safety Review Board, they're going to review the police policies. Will they be able to make any changes or recommendations, or how is this going to work?
Well, I'd rather wait and see what the town attorney's opinion on the new language is. I don't think they'll be able to, but I could be wrong.
So if there's a recommendation to send something to them.
They could certainly review and make recommendations, but I think it's going to still stay in terms of policy. I think the police chief is still going to have the authority to adopt.
So for the council to make a recommendation to send something to the Safety Review Board, it's a little premature because we haven't spoken to the actual attorney to find out what they're going to be able to do.
Well, we should have it in the next couple of days. They can certainly review the policies and make recommendations.
All right. Thank you.
So just so we know, at 10:30, we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at 7 councilors right now. Councilor Parker had to leave. And this is a referral that Councilor Baumgartner had made, and we waited until we heard what the state statute was going to be, and they're still working on that. But this is a referral that had support regarding when someone makes a referral, just so the public out there listening, when someone makes a referral, it needs to have at least 2 other counselors that support it. And there have been at least 2 other counselors that supported this referral. So this is going to public safety, and Councilor Baumgartner and his committee can look at this. I certainly trust that they will, abide by state statute, because otherwise that would be illegal. So we will wait to hear back from them, and they can certainly start having their discussion, and they can talk to the RTM members if they have a report coming out of the RTM from what Moderator Eben suggested. But that is all I have for other business at this time. I see no other hands. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is that Baumgartner? Moved by Baumgartner. Who was the second, please?
Heed.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Heed. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that is 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions, and it is 10:32. We're adjourned at 10:32. Thank you all for your work this evening. Another long night, but good job. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.